Well, go for a stroll around DC and go home. It was just so funny to me.
Yeah, I didn't.
That's it.
All right.
I had a friend that lives in Frederick that said that the local supporters were out, but he hadn't seen any actual trucks yet. So
Yeah, the things I've seen, like even traffic is like cutting them off from each other, so they like don't know who's going where. I mean, the fact that like when it started, there was like only like two trucks that like it immediately got like a flat tire. So
Oh, last thing I want to say before we get started here is there was one person last night who remarked to me that they felt a little like the odd person out, that they were the only person on the panel who disagreed with the rest of the panel. If you find yourself in that position today, stand strong. We won't shame you for being the odd person out. Let your voice be heard. So with that being said, we're going to get started here.
Recording in progress.
This
Give it a few
meeting is being recorded.
Give it a few seconds of silence and we'll come right in. All right.
hey, hey,
All right, welcome everyone to this new panel on independent thought. We are talking today about the Ukraine crisis, and I brought you a great host of panelists to join us for this discussion today. First off, we're gonna have everyone introduce themselves, say their political leaning and what they do, whether it's podcaster, streamer, or if you're running for office. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We're gonna start with my left here. Fresh Faces, New Ideas. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Fresh Faces New Ideas. I am a SocDem birding bro. I stream on Twitch under Fresh Faces New Ideas. Monday, Wednesday, Friday ish, 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. EST. I guess I'm doing these panels more often now. You can also find me on Twitter at Faces Ideas.
All right, nice, short and sweet. Appreciate it. Endless Cemetery. Why don't you go ahead and go next?
I'm Endless Cemetery. I'm a black anarchist based in Baltimore. A lot of my content is focused on studying the work of the Black Panthers, not just the self-defense aspect that everyone focuses on, but also the radical care aspect. I liken myself to those type of revolutionary vibes. I also talk about the real news and Eddie Conway, who's from here a lot. And I play video games. I'm a fighting game player. I play Mortal Kombat 11. I'm one of the best Jax players in the world, apparently. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you. Next, I want to introduce James Boyad.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Boyad. I'm running for Congress up here in Montana for District 2, running against Matt Rosendale on the Republican ticket, and hoping to try to bring a little bit more truth and transparency to the mix, and trying to cut out some of the corruption that's pretty well plagued the political world. So nice to meet everyone, and thank you guys for coming.
All right, appreciate you being here. Next is No Justice.
Hey, yeah, so I'm No Justice. My channel is No Justice MT. Where is it? Fucking, there it is. So it's in the bottom. There you go. I'm No Justice MTG. I stream on Twitch and YouTube.
What's up, Bird?
I talk about British politics and American politics and things like that. I'm a Marxist, trade unionist, like SocDem in the streets, Marxist, communist in the tweets. But I mostly do cover just kind of general news and politics. I respond to a lot of anti-trans stuff on my channel as well, being transgender myself, pronouns she, her. And yeah, so if you want all of the socials, that there is the handle. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want to go.
All right, and next we got Hardwood and Sock.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm a retired Twitch politics streamer. I come out and make my appearances every once in a while. You'll see me in, a bunch of chats, all over the place, from, the drama streamers to everyone else. But I feel like this is a very important topic. So here I am. Thanks for having me. Oh, and I'm center right.
All right, and last but not least, Alucard Hex. Welcome to the panel.
Hey, everyone. So I guess I myself haven't streamed a whole lot in a while. I stepped away to finish my education and myself sort of read up on things so that I don't make a fool of myself when I do debate on topics that I don't necessarily have, life experience on and stuff like that. But now, because okay, I guess so now into the second part of my background. So basically, I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I am in my last semester of getting a master's in international relations. So basically, I felt like I had to weigh in on this discourse in particular and give my opinion. So that's the reason why I'm here. That's also the reason why all of my shit is broken. I haven't streamed in a long, long time, but I'm looking forward to a productive discussion with all of you. And
All right.
I'm somewhere, I guess, in the sock dam ballpark, though. Lately, it's been really weird.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourself. And let's get right into it. So, our first topic for today, which had pulled up here, terrible host. Okay. So, what should the US and other Western countries' involvement be now that this war has broken out? I'm sure that anyone who's here watching the stream doesn't need really an introduction. Everyone kind of knows Russia has invaded Ukraine. It's been going on for about a week and a half now. Thousands of people, I guess, have, either been killed or injured. It seems like over 1 million people have fled Ukraine into neighboring nations, Russia, Poland, Romania. So what is the next step for these Western nations that we find ourselves in, the US, the UK? I'm going to open this up actually to my right here with Endless Cemetery. What do you think that the Western involvement should be going forward?
I would say, given what my politics are, I believe that if anything, it should only be just like aid in terms of like, food supplies, that sort of thing. I am staunchly anti-war, so that's kind of where I come from on there. But yeah, I don't want to see any type of no-fly zones, anything like that. I don't want to see any type of active engagements through NATO or anything like that. I feel like the consequences of that would be pretty cataclysmic. But aside from that, yeah, send food, send supplies, send everything that can be sent that's needed according to the needs of the Ukrainian people. And that's about it.
All right. Next, we want to go over to James Boyette. What are your thoughts on this? What should the West's involvement be now that this war has begun?
So I think the biggest thing that we need to do is I agree with providing aid. For my specific point of view, I think the aid should be a little bit more than just the food and supplies, but the necessary military resources to protect the Ukraine citizens when it comes to everything that's going on. I mean, Ukrainians are already struggling quite a bit with making sure that they've got the anti-tank, anti-aircraft weaponry. And the big thing that I think that the US and NATO should implement more than anything is a similar system to the Iron Dome over in Israel to at least prevent some of these cruise missile strikes and save the innocent civilian populations more than anything. And on a little bit more of a step up is Putin needs some sort of pushback. And I'm not saying that US and NATO needs to jump into the mix, but we need to draw a line of, hey, you wanted a deal where Ukraine wasn't going to be a part of NATO, and we adhered to that agreement. And based on the Budapest Memorandum that you yourself had agreed to back in the 90s, you violated that memorandum. You invaded Ukraine, and you're trying to take away their freedoms and liberties, and you're killing quite a few people in the meantime. And where I think the US and NATO could step up a little bit more is draw a line in the sand and be like, hey, either you withdraw your troops and stop killing innocent people, or the US and NATO will bring Ukraine into the NATO alliance, and you will then have the full support of NATO. And that's what you're going to have to compete against in terms of the way that Putin's kind of looking about things right now, he's already seeing the sanctions as an act of war by the U.S. And unfortunately, that's kind of something that we can't go back on, and we can't go back and erase history and try again. So I think the biggest thing that we can do now is try to take preventive measures to stop this invasion from continuing and try to put more pressure on Putin to stop the invasion, stop the killing, stop all of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your answer. I next want to kick it over to No Justice. What is your opening statement on this topic?
So I think the main concern that I have is anything that would lead to an escalation of the conflict. So NATO involvement militarily, by boots on the ground, is something that's obviously a red line that we should not be crossed. I'm happy with what is being going on with regards to levels of humanitarian aid, engaging in the supply of military technology and the supplying of arms with which the Ukrainian people can defend themselves. I have no disagreement with what's been going on there. That seems absolutely fine to me. But the issue is that anything with regards to a no-fly zone, in that sense, is also, tantamount to a declaration of war against Russia regardless, and that would also lead to conflict escalation and further NATO involvement, which should be avoided at all costs. With regards to what we should do from an economic angle, the issue I have at the moment is a lot of sanctions have been done with regards to tank the actual Russian economy itself rather than attack specific members of the Russian oligopoly, which has control over the kind of political system with regards to what happens within Russia. Like most capitalist states, it is an oligopoly, and the whims of a select few members of their oligarch class are the people who control most of the strings with regards to that. So incredibly performative things such as not including Russian teams in FIFA is essentially the same thing as refusing to play Robert Mugabe at cricket, like what happened with Zimbabwe, right? It's pointless and performative, and all it does is make life worse for the regular Russians who, as we've seen from the footage online, that are completely against the war. Like there's not something that the people have democratically decided to engage in. This is one man's desire for additional territory and to essentially try and bait the West into engaging in further military conflicts to try and destabilize what's happening with regards to the Eastern situation in Europe. Whereas what I would rather see is a hardline sanctions against the oligarchs in Russia. Like, for example, the $600 million yacht that belongs to one of the Russian oligarchs has been impounded in Germany, has been confiscated by their state, which I think is what we should be doing. Especially being from the UK, London is essentially the Russian money laundering capital of the world. They own so much of property in London, which has led to an incredibly large homelessness crisis in my country specifically. Owen Jones on daytime TV in our country, one of the kind of leftist political commentators who gets the most kind of airtime apart from Ash Sarkar, was saying that, well, we should just confiscate this property. As far as I'm a Marxist, I don't give a shit about property rights regardless, but like, if we're gonna at least do something, confiscating the property that belongs specifically to Russian oligarchs doesn't really affect the actual populace of Russia. And he was saying we should use that to be able to house Ukrainian refugees when they come to the UK in these properties that are being confiscated and requisitioned from the Russian oligarchs. Hit them where it hurts, stop hitting the regular people, and avoid escalation at all costs.
All right. Very poignant. I love it. Alucard Hex, you were born and raised in the Ukraine. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this topic. What is your specific idea for what the West should do next now that this conflict has started?
I think we should nuke Russia right now. But I guess if we're getting serious, I would say I am pro essentially all kinds of aid, humanitarian, military. Obviously, I think right now is like one of the most important points in the war. So right now we have something where United States can't quite like push the jets through from like Poland and Romania and Bulgaria and all that. So I think, if there is ever a time to do it, now is the time, because, Russians seemingly their like blitzkriegs have failed a little bit. So you could really catch them off balance. So I think now would be the best time to do it. And I'm a little bit disappointed that has not come. In terms of the no-fly zone, I think, okay, this is going to be a hot take, but I think a no-fly zone is actually okay. I don't know if I should go into the reasoning right now, or I guess I'll give like a quick rundown. Basically, I don't really think Putin has responded to deterrence whatsoever at this point. And sort of, if you're like if you're like counterbalancing like nuclear holocaust um with with a military intervention, I think that sort of drawing the line at where NATO starts is kind of strange, because when the stakes are that high, like what makes you think that NATO is going to defend Estonia any more than it does Ukraine? Like if the sort of if the outcome that you're afraid of is nuclear annihilation, that like what makes you think that like piece of paper is going to hold up? Because once again, it's not NATO that has nukes, it's France, it's Britain, it's the United States. So are they really gonna like go all in for places like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania? I don't really know. So to me, like it might be sensible to just stop it basically, as soon as we can. Once, as long as we have some kind of an advantage. That's sort of my take. And lastly, on the sort of like weird virtue signal sanctions, I would agree that they're sort of pretty cringe at times. But on the other hand, I can sort of see value in essentially demonstrating that the Russian government has like really, really fucked up, where optically they're just hated on all fronts, and sort of to, carry that message to the Russian people that, okay, listen, the propaganda that you see on TV is really just complete horseshit. Like this needs to stop. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so basically on the virtue signals, I'm a little bit 50-50. That's
All
about
right.
it for now.
Thank you for that. I see that we will not have such a agreement within the panel as we did last night. So, Sock, you are next. What is your thoughts on what the Western involvement should be?
I think it should just pretty much be what it has been, where we are providing humanitarian aid, we're providing Stinger missiles, as far as the US goes. Like I wouldn't stop at just humanitarian aid, but I wouldn't go as far as saying we should be sending jets into Ukraine. I think like it needs to be somewhere in the middle. A no-fly zone is a non-starter for me. I think we need to try to avoid World War III at all costs. I think we're kind of caught in like a very tough position because Ukraine is not part of NATO. So if we just go in there and defend them, right? Well, it's just like now we're playing the world police again without like necessarily an alliance, whereas if they do invade, Latvia, Estonia, Romania, well, they're already part of the alliance. Like they're entitled to Article 5 protection, right? So like, and if we don't come to their aid, then we have like a real big issue, like, and as far as like the virtue signaling, sanctions, all right, cool. Like that's all fine and dandy. Like if you want to, ban Russia from all the sports, that's fine. But, you have Alex Ovechkin, right, who's an NHL player in the United States, who's basically getting criticized just because he's Russian. And it's like, well, he says no war. He says he doesn't want war. Like, why are we attacking him? Right? We don't need to attack the Russian people. I think
I disconnected my VPN, kind of so it's stop buffering now.
Entice the people to rise up, and hopefully, take down, internally, Putin. With enough public pressure, public pressure goes a really long way. Now they're doing like the propaganda campaign, like all they can, but like I think that we can't just be like, oh, we're only going to do it to the oligarchs and Putin. No, unfortunately, it has to be to everybody. And I'm really encouraged to see all the protesters in Russia that aren't afraid of getting arrested, because they're all going to get arrested, and keep trying to stand up and keep trying to get that message out. But, like I said, Russia has a really strong propaganda campaign, but we just need to hold strong. Also, I don't believe that we should be, stopping the import of oil from Russia at the moment.
Yeah, I was.
I think that the world could actually handle that.
I was on a VPN.
I know
I just disconnected my VPN.
We only get a little bit of oil from them here in the United States, but a lot of places in the EU get a lot more proportionally. So which then if they stop getting oil, then they need more of our supply of oil, and then it just causes like a global oil crisis. So I think what we're doing right now is good, and I'll leave it at that.
All right. Finally, Fresh Faces, new ideas. Round us out here with your perspective.
Look, I think right now with the okay, apparently 4K protesters today have been arrested. I don't know if that's just overall or just individually today in Russia. But like I think right
That
now we
shit's
have to
crazy.
focus a little bit more on the humanitarian aid. I was seeing the reports today. I'm not sure entirely how accurate they are because everything's kind of funky. I don't think that the corridor that they agreed to yesterday even held to get civilians out. Which, I mean, if they're not even going to agree to that, we have to like figure out a better way to get the civilians out, at least the ones who want to leave. Like there was a 3-hour piece that they said like just let them out, and apparently they just kept shelling the city, so that didn't make any changes. I think we're doing more or less the right thing. We figure out the planes with Poland to send the planes in. I think if we're able to supply better planes, that would lessen the need for an actual no-fly zone, especially if they're planes that the Ukrainian army can fly, which is, I believe, what we're sending them now. Because that's really the reason for the no-fly zone is they don't have the air capacity to fight back, and that's really where most of the civilian deaths are going to come from is the carpet bombing. As for the sanctions, I agree with pretty much everyone on the sanctions that we have to target them at both the overall economy in a way to show them that we can like really hurt the people at the top, but it also has to be the people to rise up as well. Obviously, some of them are a little nonsense. I think today both TikTok and Twitch ended in Russia because of their crackdown on free speech. I think that's kind of a mistake because they're already going to crack down on those things anyway, and having the ability for both people inside of Russia to argue against what's happening and for people outside to have conversations with people inside of Russia allows for a larger like an uprising movement that isn't controlled by their state media that they are expanding right now. So things like that, things like stopping cats, the Russian cats from being in the competition's nonsense. And like I think the point Zach made about not all Russians is a really important point. Like when we saw like that first week with the banning of Russian vodka, which doesn't even come from Russia half the time, or the attacking of Russian bars. Like we've been through this like every time. Like we're gonna start renaming Russian vodka Freedom Vodka or something like we did with the French fries. Like this is not going to be effective, and it's not like there are bad outcomes to this. We've seen it. There's the kind of nonsense ones with the Freedom Fries, or there's like the Islamophobic, anti-Asian sentiments we've seen after the coronavirus and 9/11, where they were like getting physically assaulted, and that's something we have to like clearly define that the difference is here.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's opening statement here. I'm going to open up the panel to anybody who wants to respond to anyone else's points. You can be contentious, but be civil. So go ahead and open up to anyone who wants to speak first.
I just wanted to push back on this idea that engaging in wholesale economic sanctions against Russia is going to theoretically lead to some kind of future regime change due to public outcry and public uprising. Like Russia is an autocracy, it's an oligopoly, it's entirely controlled by people at the top. There's no democracy to speak of with regards to what's happening in Russia. And at the very least, the main opposition, the CRPF, are also in favor of the invasion and of recognizing the sovereignty of the DPR and the LPR. There's no this idea that there's going to be the sanctions are going to be so brutal upon the people of Russia that they're somehow going to be able to oust Putin out of nowhere. When at the end of the day, that decision will solely lie, as far as I'm concerned, with
Thank
the
you,
people
cats,
with
cats,
the
cats.
political and financial power to be able to remove Putin of their own regard, which is the people at the top, which is the oligarchs. Which is why I disagree with a lot of the. I mean, I understand that some level of wholesale economic sanctions has to take effect. I don't necessarily disagree with removing Russia from SWIFT and engaging in sanctions against Sberbank and places like that. I get that. That will have some effect, but things like MasterCard and Visa pulling out of Russia and wholesale, that mostly is just going to affect people on the ground as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think that these things should be what we're focusing on at the time. And I think the claims that wholesale economic sanctions will lead to some kind of popular uprising, I think is...
it's an accelerationist argument.
Misjudged. I mean, I think that I don't think that this is necessarily something that's going to take place in Russia in 2022 right now.
Yeah, but like the with MasterCard and stuff pulling out, how much is that based on sanctions, or is that like general public pressure? Like I feel like that's kind of like the step up from like the black square during the Black Lives Matter protests. It's kind of corporations like thinking that they have to do something when really they're making things worse. Like
Yeah.
I think, and especially the thing is you have to watch them. Like sometimes they'll say it and then they'll like keep doing it. Or they'll stay in there. Like I think that's a thing we can keep in mind as
How
well.
you
Like, I
doing,
think
cats,
Coke
cats,
is one of
cats?
the corporations that's still staying in Russia, and people are like, well, I'm gonna boycott Coke now. It's like, why? They're still kind of doing the right thing. So no, I agree with you. I think the states that are doing the sanctioning is one thing. I think if you're a corporation, you have to like really think about what you're doing, because a lot of time it's not really worth it for you to say anything about it either way.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Because the other issue is, I think that one thing we're missing as well is one of the reasons for the financial sanctions isn't just to cripple Russia so much that the Vladimir Putin gets excised from power. It also, once the money runs out, the war cannot continue. This war is costing them huge amounts of money every single day that it continues. The intention at the start was for a quick kind of blitzkrieg on the territory of Ukraine, to try and overrun them quickly within the first few days, and that's clearly not happened. It was clearly the wrong time to engage in the conflict, and weather conditions, and there's a long thread that we could go down there. But one of the reasons for the economic sanctions on a kind of large state level is to try and cripple the state financial system so much that they cannot engage in war any further, because they're just due to not being able to afford it. They don't have the financial backing. Even places like China aren't backing them financially in the war at the moment.
Yeah, and like so, but when you do sanction the entire state, it's going to trickle down into the people. As
Oh,
well.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So naturally, like the general population of Russia will always be hurt by the sanctions that we're doing, right? So it's almost like it's almost coming across like what are you going to do? Are you going to not sanction the entire state, which would
Thank
still
you,
hurt
cats,
the
cats,
people?
cats.
Or like you can't just sanction the oligarchs and Putin. You know what I mean?
I understand that, yeah.
So it's kind of like while yes, it would be great to like not hurt the Russian people, it's just going to be a natural byproduct of what like basically all we can do at the moment without putting boots on the ground.
Right.
Well,
I understand that, yeah.
The other thing is also, No Justice is right. Like, there's so many states like America and like she was talking about London that have just been money laundering Russian money. Like going after that, like it's really cool because the yacht is like a noticeable thing that you can like see and they can talk about that you're stealing or that you're repossessing. But if you like going after apartment buildings or housing or whatever else they have their money in, and you have like you're going after that, that's where it's going to hurt. So you have to apply it both ways, because even if you're not going to sanction directly the oligarchs, going after the money laundering should open up. And this is going to be a fight because there's a lot of investment in all of these countries to like protect this money because they've made all this money.
Right.
I mean, there was the
just want to
So hold
clarify
on really
something
quickly,
before we move
everyone.
on, sorry.
I'm just going to say really quickly here, we haven't heard from Endless, James, or Alucard. Go ahead and just jump in if you guys want to. Also,
Before we
just
move on, can I clarify one thing? Sorry.
yeah, go ahead and clarify.
Just want to clarify and say that I'm just to my previous point. I understand that there is going to be some level of material harm done to the regular populace of Russia. I'm fully aware that is going to happen. It needs to happen at least somewhat. My point is to try and minimize that as much as possible. Right? If just to make it clear.
Right. I also want to add a little bit into this conversation here. From the reporting that I've been seeing coming out of like The Intercept in particular, it seems as though I think the word they used was the opacity of our financial system,
Mm-hmm.
especially like here and in the UK, has kind of allowed for so many Russian oligarchs to kind of like hide their money in our system here, and it's been very hard for our governments to even track down this money. So even if they wanted to really go after everyone, having a very difficult time even finding the money. So it might not be as simple as being like, oh, let's go get their money and seize all their assets, so on and so forth. But
there was a massive piece like 3 months ago about where all of the world's biggest shell corporations, one of them was in like North Carolina,
Yep.
That was
Right,
a,
but
there
the
was a
problem with
massive-
the shell corporation is that you can't always track down owners of shell
if
corporations.
yeah, but like if there's the, I imagine if you're going to start with it, the massive set of reportings that have already occurred would be a pretty good way to do it. Like
I'm sure that they're on the case.
Nah, they don't want that, because there's also the fact that like the top 10 Russian. This is why it's weird whenever we use the word oligarch to refer to like Russian billionaires, is because like Elon Musk and what's the bald dude's name who was in space with our
Bezos.
money? Yeah, they have combined more money than the top 10 Russian oligarchs. So it kind of seems baked into the cake for me. That's really the only point I have there. Everything else I've been hearing, I've been kind of agreeing with. The only thing I would really say is to clarify my earlier point. I would definitely, I don't know if it came across that I agree with like sending weapons and munitions and so on and so forth for the Ukrainian people to do self-defense. But yeah, I'm on that same boat as well. But yeah.
All right, if I can comment on the, I guess on the particular targeting for sanctions, I guess I don't super believe in a like a purely like oligarchic sort of overthrow. I can't quite articulate why. I guess for one, it might be because if you essentially don't replace the system, then like there's a decent chance that everything's just gonna stay the same way. But I guess to
Thank you,
sort of,
Freckle.
in terms of the effectiveness angle, I believe that the most effective revolutions are ones that combine popular support and backing from strong opposition groups, because that's sort of what happened in Ukraine. Although the Yanukovych government was in power, was corrupt as fuck, there were a lot of opposition groups that disliked them and were willing to bankroll the protesters. So that's, I think, a large part of the reason why that revolution worked. So I think if we can get something similar going in Russia, I think that would be the most effective way to overthrow Putin. Because right now, if you go out and protest, you just, you get your ass beat, you get thrown in jail for a month, and I don't know, your
If
life
not
only
longer.
gets worse.
Yeah.
But if you can at least, offer them some protection, some money for their troubles, I think it would be a lot easier for people to go out, because, that's really, Russia is a robust police state. So a lot of people are really afraid of being fucked up like big time. And, I can acknowledge that. So I think if we can alleviate those concerns a little bit, I think that would be nice.
Yeah, I mentioned this on a panel last night. So I think I'm going to mention it again in this one. I had someone reach out to me on Instagram who has friends currently in Russia who tried sending money to their family members in Kharkiv. And the Russian government actually blocked the transaction and questioned them for possibly being a traitor. So it does seem like Russia has a pretty tight control over any and all transactions going on in Russia right now. Putin notoriously has complete control over state TV, or most of state TV. They've basically squashed all independent voices, in that country right now. So it's a pretty bleak situation.
I don't
for
think
the
they're
people of Russia
particularly
right now.
unique in that regard, though. Honestly.
No, they're not unique, but it's their current.
Oh
reality.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's why like, oh, James, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. I was talking a lot already.
So, kind of agreeing with what you guys were saying, in terms of kind of backing the people of Russia. Really, at this point, the only way to address the Russian oligarchy is for basically a full-blown revolution to take place. And if you take, for example, Elon Musk with the Starlink, if he can expand that to the people of Russia, give them access to media that's not going to be blocked by the Russian government. I mean, China's doing the same thing. They're blocking Facebook, they're blocking Twitter, they're blocking all these things that allows the people to get any sort of outside perspective or any sort of outside help.
You could definitely use
implementing some
VPNs
sort of
though.
system like that, expanding this Starlink project to give the people of Russia a little bit more kind of fuel to the fire is definitely going to help quite a bit. On the flip side to that, the importing of Russian oil, that is emboldening the Russian government and providing them with more money to funnel into their military. And that's something that
Yeah, I
I
mean,
know for a fact
so
China's not gonna stop anything there. I mean,
there's
even
nothing
Xi
really.
Jinping
That's what I was
or
saying.
like
Cats,
that,
cats, cats is like
and
all the same
we
stuff
can
that's
stop
happening in Russia. I
as much
personally watched Witness with my own two eyes
the
happen
being
here in
sold from
2020 during the George
Russia
Floyd
as
protests.
possible. That's gonna put a pinch on the people, like hands down. But at the same token, how much can the people of Russia truly take before they start standing up against the Russian Federation, before they start taking things into their own hands and not just protesting, but taking the fight internally to Putin?
It does take
to the
courage to
oligarchs,
protest, though. I
and
will say that. Yes,
half
they
the
do have lots of
Russian
courage, and you
military
should
is
be
already
commended for
on board
doing so.
saying that they don't even agree with this Russia-Ukraine war anyway. So it's just a matter of turning the tide and giving the power back to the people of Russia and give them a little bit of wiggle room to start fighting back.
Um,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
no, you go because I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, I guess I just wanted to like add a quick note that although in terms of like information censorship and all of that, Russia is not very unique. I think there is one dimension that in which it is very unique, and that is demographics. So Russia is a really big country with a relatively small population. It's freaking enormous. So in some cities, obviously this is hyperbole, but like, some cities almost have as many cops as they have people. So that is one thing. And also the Russian population is pretty old, and boomers just a lot of the time they don't really care about what's going on, period. And they certainly ain't gonna go out there into the square and fight anyone. So that is, I think, another impediment to the popular uprisings in Russia. So I think we'll have to rely on big cities like Petersburg and Moscow a lot of the time, regardless, I'm pretty sure.
I also think that it's not particularly in America's interest for something like that to happen because they've been trying since the 60s to ensure that that doesn't happen on American soil. So
Wait,
Go ahead, Sam.
I mean,
Alucard, I want to push back on or just kind of give you some clarity, like in regards to like the NATO thing, like the drawing the line in the sand. Like why would we defend Estonia or Latvia or Romania? But we're not like exactly going in and defending Ukraine. It's more the fact that like we've created an alliance that is a defensive alliance, right? So because Ukraine is
it's
not
resource
defensive
based.
alliance, we cannot.
It's because of
go
Ukraine's
into
resources.
another country
That's
as a
literally
NATO
it,
force,
from my
right?
perspective, anyway.
Because then if we do now that gives Putin the right to say like, hey, now you're an aggressive force, right? Because now you're not just a defensive force, right? You're not just defending your own territories and alliances. Now you're an aggressive force, and now you know what I mean. Now that argument has is valid, whereas he was trying to use that argument, but it didn't exactly work because you guys like Ukraine wasn't part of NATO, so you can't say that we're aggressing into Ukraine. You know what I mean? So, like, if we do that, then he's going to see that, and we're going to start World War III. And then there's going to be nukes flying. So it's a very delicate situation, and the reason why. Like we would defend Latvia, Estonia, and whatever, because if we didn't, then NATO would fall apart, right? Because then it's really like, what is the point of this? Because now we're not defending the countries that we promised to defend, right? And like,
it's all good.
But like in terms of like utilitarian calculus, if you will, NATO falling apart is probably better than nuclear holocaust, isn't it?
I mean, I guess yeah, in a way, but I mean. Like I personally would want to like hold true to the pact that we made, and be able to and try to defend as much as we can that line in the sand that's already been drawn,
and also to like the NATO defense thing, it depends on like where we think the calculus is. Like it's not as likely that they're just going to start firing nukes off if they invade like one of these smaller countries like Latvia or Estonia and something. and all NATO's there for is as a pushback force. It's more likely that they'll start firing nukes off is if after they rout whatever's left of the Russian army, they start pushing into Russian territory. So as long as it's purely a defensive thing, I think it is certainly less likely for nukes to fly. But realistically, like any armed conflict between NATO and Russia is probably going to be it for everybody. Because as we've already seen, like Russia doesn't have anywhere near the military capability to fight NATO. Like they can't fight really Ukraine, and they're like nowhere near as well equipped to fight.
Yeah. Even if that weren't the case, just really quick, I was gonna say, even if that weren't the case, kind of like to what No Justice was alluding to, it's just gonna be more poor people being sent to fight and die. So it's kind of a like the proletariat, or rather the regular working class people lose no matter what, because they're the ones that are gonna be out there dying for other people's money.
No, that's a fair point. All right, I just want to say, everyone, that if you have any final points to make, go ahead and make them now. We're going to transition to the next topic.
So the only last point that I'll toss out there is we're spending a lot of time talking about the NATO portion, and that's what we should. But when we're concerning ourselves with what's going on with NATO, whether Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, who's violating
I do
what,
love orange soda.
why is it that we're not really addressing the fact that Russia violated the Budapest Memorandum? And the catch-22 is Russia has a pretty big seat on the UN right now, but what exactly are we doing to hold them accountable for violating the treaty that's been in place for almost 30 years?
Would you mind, for people who aren't aware, what does the Budapest Memorandum say, I guess, like in a summary?
So the main summary is
I sold
there
out
was
for
an
orange soda.
agreement
Yes, I am,
because
Cal.
Ukraine had a nuclear missile at the time, and the agreement came into place of Ukraine would hand that nuclear missile back over to the Russian Federation on the contingencies that Russia would not invade or try to pursue any sort of takeover of the Ukrainian territory. And that had the backing of the US, the UK, Northern Ireland, and the Russian Federation.
Okay. Any other final thoughts?
One thing I should have mentioned in my opening statement, but forgot to mention, was that there just needs to be a better. We need to be more equipped to deal with the refugee crisis that's going to ensue.
Yeah,
especially in
that.
European nations, like they need to stop being racist at the border and just turning away African students because they're the wrong skin color. The UK needs to remove the visa restrictions. At the moment, we're only accepting people who have family in Ukraine. We have the most ludicrous foreign secretary. She's called Priti Patel, and she's one of the worst people who's ever been in government, as far as I'm concerned. She's a rancid monster, as far as I'm concerned. And we need to be doing more to, again, obviously humanitarian aid is one thing, but relaxing, border controls to be able to absorb more refugees into the greater European Union, and obviously the European landmass, in which the UK technically falls underneath, I guess, in kind of the abstract. This needs to be done. We need to be extremely forthright in our desire to accept refugees.
And
Yeah, that's a pretty big stain on Poland at the end of the day for them to kind of have that be happening at their border. It seems like they were somewhat also enforcing it, but shout out to Romania for not being assholes.
Yes.
Seems like they were letting everybody in,
We're
regardless of
also
skin
not doing
color.
the jewelry checks that they were doing with the Afghan civilians. And also, we have to get this done now. Like, she's right.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's the humanitarian aid. Like right now, it's the last count I saw yesterday was 1.4 million people. This is the first wave. Like, inevitably, as if this continues and there's no ceasefire and Ukraine as a country kind of collapses because they capture the capital, there's 45 million people in Ukraine. That second wave we're probably looking at 10 times the size of people. And if we don't have any system in place now to get it, like, it's going to be chaos, and it's going to rise a whole line of hardliners to take power in places where they wouldn't have had a chance simply from fear mongering this
Right.
stuff.
All right, so we are now going to transition topics. Thank you, everyone. So our second topic is along this NATO line. And obviously, none of us are mind readers, so this is everyone's just their own personal speculation. Keep that in mind. Should Putin be afraid of NATO? And was that the real provocation for this conflict, as he has said was one of his reasons? Or was it just an excuse for him to expand his territory of the Russian Empire? And I want to say that as we start opening statements this time around, let's try to keep every opening statement to about a minute, so we're not getting too long in the weeds with the opening statements. We're going to start with Fresh Faces New Ideas this time. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
I mean, like, NATO isn't aggressive in the same way Russia is. I mean, obviously, it's a lie of how we use it. That's why we have had multiple different reasons for them going in. I mean, if he's afraid of NATO, it's because he's realized that we actually have like a functioning military and can actually fight them if they tried something. But no, he's lying about it. But the same reason they were using the denazification, he said that this is all Russian territory. Like, if you're flipping through multiple different arguments for your justification through multiple days, your justification is probably bullshit.
Okay, next we're gonna go to Hardwood and Sock.
Yeah, so in the beginning, like before the invasion actually started, I think that there was some validity to, him being worried about, Western democracies, basically aligning up along his border. But then his speech happened, and then he's like, I want to go full blood and soil. Okay, cool. All right. So obviously you were just full of shit. And then like he tried the denazification, which is, I liken that to like us going into Iraq. He's tried everything under the book. I think like it's a multifaceted issue. I think, maybe he's worried about Western values coming closer. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe, he's really worried about what's going on in the Donbass.
Oh yeah, the ultra nationalism
maybe
frackle.
he's
Absolutely.
trying to, build up his legacy, and show that I was a strong Russian leader. And, another thing is, it just disappeared. Cool. Yeah, I'll wait for the end.
All right. A la carte Hex, what is your take on Putin's motivations here?
Well, so I think the sort of the military dimension is just complete horseshit. There was 0% chance of NATO ever attacking Russia. On the other hand, Russia has, in fact, attacked a few places over the years. So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous to bring that up. But I think in terms of, I guess, in terms of like Putin's like sovereignty type of conversation, where it might be damaging for his image to have like another Western liberal democracy right on his border, that would be pretty fucked up. That would further delegitimize him. And plus, it's also dangerous for him to like show a moment of weakness, because Ukraine hasn't been the only place that has been trying to like slowly sneak away from the Russian sphere of influence. We've seen that in Moldova and Georgia, which just applied for the EU membership. We've seen little bits of that in Armenia. Kazakhstan has denied to give our boy Putin troops, and plus they've just had these like massive like protests that turned super violent, but they died down. But still, that kind of showcases that that place is also like ready to blow in a way. So I think this is like a critical juncture for him, and part of the reason why he's acting so unhinged is because, if he shows weakness here, then he might just be super fucked from all directions, domestically and internationally. Him, the man, not the country. So I think this is ultimately all about Putin's ego.
Okay, fair enough. No Justice, you're next.
So it's a kind of catch-22, really, in that obviously eastward expansion of NATO is just kind of going against the Gorbachev agreements in the 90s, but it almost feels incredibly vindicated. Obviously, I understand, Russia wouldn't be happy with there being, essentially a militarized presence from other Western countries along its border. You can understand why the Russian why Putin would be frustrated by that. But then by going in and invading Ukraine, it's just vindicated all of the NATO expansionism eastward. So it's a credible catch-22 there. As for his own motivation, I do believe that it is mostly geopolitical in nature. Obviously, there's plenty of excuses that he's given with regards to the Donbass region denazification. But obviously, with the vast majority of those Eastern countries in the previous Russian sphere of influence wanting to move towards the European economic area rather than the Asian economic area, has obviously been influential as well there too. So he's clearly has ulterior motives. Well, to which I think that even if NATO eastward expansionism is a cause of it, by engaging what he's engaged in, it has vindicated those decisions to move NATO eastwards.
All right. Next, we want to go with James. What are your thoughts on Putin's motivations here?
So I think his motivations kind of tie very, very closely with that of China and North Korea, to be honest. And there's not really any surprise that he's deciding to make these moves after seeing what happened in Afghanistan. I mean, that was a huge show of weakness. And when Putin, leading up to this, his main concern was bringing up, don't make Ukraine part of NATO, and repeating that over and over and over. Well, looking at the underlying reason, why exactly is that? And the reason is he wanted to have the ability to impose this war on Ukraine, knowing that Ukraine was not going to be a part of NATO and not having to compete against the NATO force. And on the flip side, look over at China and what they're doing with Taiwan and the increased military aggression, North Korea with their increased missile tests and firings. It's all kind of pretty ironic that everything's lining up pretty perfectly at the same time. But when Putin out of nowhere is just hell-bent on wanting some sort of assurance that Ukraine's not going to be a part of NATO, and he in turn invades, I think that his entire purpose for that is not only expanding the Russian territory to try to get Ukraine back, but at the same time, seeing what the global response is going to be to him taking these actions, because by him kind of testing the waters, that's giving China and North Korea a pretty clear idea of what exactly they're going to face if they decide to move forward with their aggressions.
All right. And finally, Endless Cemetery, round us off here with your perspective on Putin's mindset.
I think it's a little column A, little column B. I think Putin enjoyed having a buffer state between himself and NATO. So that's always good, like strategically when you're talking about like military tactics, but also, imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. So Ukraine has lots of resources that they would really like to enjoy having control over, which is, to me, the denazification thing struck me more as anti-NATO propaganda, the Nazi arming and training organization, because Ukraine has their issues with the Azov battalion and NATO did fund and arm them at one point. That is true. But at the same time, it's not as if Russia doesn't have their own issues with ultra-nationalism, right? That's why the grapers here in America like Russia so much and they're like being Putin cheerleaders right now. It's because they're kind of really, really into that. But I think both things can be true at the same time.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and open it up to the full panel here. Again, feel free to push back on anyone else's takes, be contentious, but yet civil. Go ahead and start off wherever you want to.
All right. Sorry, I realized what I lost track of. Russia's also like a dying petrol state, as like the global West has moved more and more towards green energy and has less of a reliance on oil, which is basically Russia's, pretty much only export.
Right.
And obviously they export other things. That kind of, now he's kind of under pressure, right, to try to expand, get more natural resources, to get more exports, so like that's what I mean. That's why I felt like it was like a multifaceted issue. It wasn't just maybe NATO was like a very like 5% piece of it, but I think that all those other things play like a big role in his decision to do this. Plus, I think that he's maybe lost his fucking mind. All right.
Maybe he's got like cancer or something, or long COVID.
Well,
I've heard the long
what do you mean?
COVID theory been floated.
It's totally normal to have conversations with people 45 feet away on tables. I think that's something everybody does, especially when they're like your close advisors or other heads of states.
You've never had Thanksgiving dinner with your racist uncle?
I mean, how many people on 45-foot marble tables?
Well, yeah, fair enough.
I would love a 45-foot marble table.
It would be. It's just so swaggy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, but like it's like the Nazification stuff is wild. Like least of all being the fact that Zelensky is Jewish. That seems to be like a pretty good counter argument to there. And like again, like plenty of countries have their own far right issues with nationalists. Like you can pick a country, you can find lunatics that you can pinpoint. I mean, granted, they have a little bit more of an issues. They've had some like foreign leaders that they've tried to make as heroes, but you could still point to pretty much any country to find that stuff. So it's not a good enough. I think most of it is probably done by him kind of being a little crazy, and then some economic reasons, because they like when they took Crimea and stuff, it was a lot of for economics. And that's why, like,
so does anyone buy the idea that Putin has watched the U.S. invade? Right? I mean, they have invaded other countries in the past, and think to himself that maybe I'll be more vulnerable to that unless I draw a line in the sand. Would anyone buy that argument?
Annex Russia or invade Russia? No.
No,
because he's trying to sell his populace on this is a defensive maneuver that needs to be done.
They're taking notes from U.S. invasions previously to use similar talking points.
Right.
But the thing that we're learning, like especially in the 20th century, is 21st century, is if you are a nuclear power, you're not going to get invaded. If you are a non-nuclear power and you get nukes, if you give them up, that's it. Like that's like the
basically
worst thing you can do. As long as so the problem with this ultimately comes, there's two options to this. It's either everybody is armed, or the world falls under a couple of large umbrellas with a few countries that basically protect everyone else.
That was a Freudian slip.
yeah, corporation. Like it's a large umbrellas for countries with nuclear power, because everything, like that's why North Korea is never going to give up nukes. Because they know they're gonna, and they're also never gonna invade South Korea. They don't have the ability to do that. Like, and China wouldn't let them because they're like an effective way of keeping them as a buffer state. Taiwan is a totally different thing, and should Taiwan get invaded, I don't think the sanctions. I don't think it's
low key.
I don't think the sanctions we see on Russia are getting anywhere near against China because of how much more effective China's economy is tied in with the rest of the world.
One thing that I did find fascinating in regards to like China and this whole situation though, is like China's really backed off of Russia. Like they're not in full support like I kind of expected them to be. And like the only reason like I could think of was that like the messaging Russia's using to invade Ukraine, because Russia's always recognized or has recently recognized Ukraine as a sovereign country, right? Whereas China doesn't view Taiwan as a sovereign country. They view it as part of China, right? So like, I think that might be one of the main reasons why China's really, backed off a little bit, because if they support like this invasion into Ukraine, right, it's basically like they actually see it as an invasion, where if they invade Taiwan, like I think we all agree it would be an invasion, China wouldn't see it as an invasion. You know what I mean?
Right. Now they're going to classify it differently when they're selling it to the global community. But I think China's backing off because they don't really want the same problems the Russians are having. I don't think Russia or China thought that the West would respond with this level of sanctions. I think that's why you're seeing China take more of a neutral stance right now. I don't think they want those same economic hindrances coming at them the way that Russia's being basically canceled on the world stage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Russia and China have only really been in allegiance with each other, like, economically, and now Russia ain't got anything for them, so why would they?
It's also like hard for them. Well, the sanctions they're not going to get this anywhere near the Russian sanctions, because that would just collapse every economy. But I think it's also the fact that if Russia had blitzkrieg kind of in the way that they expected, and they had basically been in control of Ukraine by now, I think China would be a little bit more
That's
on
true,
their
Freckle.
side, because the longer this goes, like the more brutal it's going to get, and that's optically more of an issue for them than it is for anything else. And so I think that's like Russia's clear military failures here, I think is more to point to why China isn't as full-throated in their defense.
China, they've shifted more towards like economic and cultural influence more so than militaristic.
Yeah.
Thank you
Also
for
the
that,
reason
Freckle.
why, it's countries like Venezuela that have looked into supporting Russia in these times, because they're already under so much duress with regards to economic power and with relationships with the West, than China, which actually has a very good
TikTok,
relationship
Huawei
with Western countries
phones,
at
you
this
know what I
point in time.
mean?
And the reason why
There's
China is
mad
staying
shit in this
neutral
country that's
conflict
made in China.
Venezuela is happy to be in full support of Russia at this point.
Apparently, the U.S. is reaching out to Venezuela as well for some oil. We're also reaching out to Iran. Yeah,
Why
that's
would
that's the thing. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, if you're gonna want to shore up whatever you can for right now, as the biggest, and we'll probably get to this in the next one, is like shoring up the whatever oil you can right now. If you do plan to cut Russia off, makes the most sense to like find an extra source of it. And I imagine the UK is probably doing something similar, as is Germany, because it's the logical next step, and it's the ultimate step that's going to take a while. So it might be good to move away from like an unstable state right now and find like more stability in the world.
Yeah.
Almost a really good reason for fossil fuel divestment and a Green New Deal for a change in energy production.
Oh no, well,
Wouldn't
I
think you're getting questions
That's the
confused
third
from
one.
last night, my friend. We did that oil question last night. We're not doing that
Oh
one.
no, it's part of my answer for the next question as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right,
Alucard,
if I
why
can
don't you jump
just-
in here?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess on the optics angle, I think Putin like just fucked up big time during his like declaration of war speech, because I think China and all of these Hungary and these types of places were fully ready to buy the NATO copium, but then this guy comes out and he's like, "Hey, I'm bringing back the Russian Empire," and they're like, "What the fuck? This guy is actually nuts." And I think that's like part of the reason why China is not only like not supporting, but in a way backing off. Russia and Belarus just got pushed out of the AIIB because Russia doesn't really have a choice on whether they want to trade with Russia or not, or Russia with China. So, they're fucked up, they're fucked either way. But the thing is, China doesn't necessarily have to deal with Putin. I don't think they support him as much. So basically, I think they wouldn't oppose the guy getting pushed out because he has demonstrated himself to be insane. And I guess on the whole, on the denazification angle and the DNR and LNR angles, I think the weird thing with that is that I think Putin actually like waited too long to cash in on that, because in like 2014-15, where far right parties had like at least, I think they had like maybe like 15% of the seats in the Ukrainian parliament and stuff like that, whereas now they literally have one seat in total. And the whole thing about Donbass shelling. I
Yo,
think everybody
Kev,
has
thanks for the
long
raid.
Figured out that
Thanks, Sir from McGritty,
that
for the
is
follow.
essentially entirely just bankrolled and supported by Russia. So it's really, I think the guy has actually gone nuts, because that was just an unbelievably stupid move. He turned away like almost all of his allies, essentially, except for places like Eritrea that are just like meme countries with like
Belarus.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
Belarus might be ending up in it. I think also the thing that we don't talk about enough is they sat there for like 2 months, and the Ukrainians are like,
I don't
"We're
really like
prepping in
Monster. I
case
don't
they're
drink
coming."
Monster.
And they're like shocked that the Ukrainians are ready. I was like, you sat there for like, you stood outside of their house waving a bat saying, "I'm coming for you," and they spent a month going, "Okay, I'm gonna prep for you." They basically home alone their house. Like, that seems like to be a massive military failure on itself. And I think another thing you said was him waiting too long is when they first invaded Crimea, they like ran it over.
Let me push back on that a little bit, Fresh Faces. While they did sit on the border for a couple months with all those troops, Zelensky said himself that he did not expect a full-scale invasion. So they didn't really prep like I guess like prep maybe the way that you're like trying to like insinuate right now. And
Oh,
this
no,
isn't
no,
really
no,
the
no.
first time that Russia's put their troops on someone's border either, and then not invaded. Like they put troops on the border of Finland a few years back, and then nothing ended up happening through that. So I don't know that Ukraine really like prepared for a Russia invasion. I think they're doing the best they can, but I don't think they were really ready for this.
Not everything, but I think their populace was a little bit more ready. And maybe it was like a little bit.
I
of
feel you, Frackle. I
propaganda
wish you could
videos
hop
and
on
stuff
too.
that I remember seeing, but like the grandmas preparing in the streets and stuff.
I'd be down for
it
conversation
because of how
on
much
this
the alarm
topic
bells
as well.
went.
If
And
you
I
ever
mean,
want
look,
to do like
part of it was the
another chat, I enjoy having my chats
part
with
of
you,
it was
Frackle. I think it's
the
good content.
propaganda. I imagine maybe at least from America, like when we were, because look, we were kind of spot on with the intelligence. We certainly didn't have the date right. We missed the date by like 2 weeks, but most of the other intelligence was pretty accurate, and I think that helped them like be a little bit more prepared.
I would say, just to respond to that real quick, I think it's possible that Zelensky was putting up a front just to keep investment into the Ukrainian economy going, because obviously if everybody thought that they were about to go to war, then the money flow would shut down. So that is a possibility, but I guess
real
and
Jaws
also, I guess,
vibes.
as some
Panic.
evidence of that, I think that the survival of the Ukrainian Air Force kind of serves as the evidence of that, because if you guys remember, that first night the Russians were targeting the airfields and shit like that with the few guided missiles that they had, and Ukrainian Air Force still survived anyway. So I think that's some evidence that like they knew that something was coming. But sort of
Shit, my grandmother told me.
We'll
they
never
profit off
know
of
for
us, so I'm
sure
finna profit
until,
off them.
decades after this, when all of this shit is like declassified and all of that.
All right, we're gonna switch topics here in about like 5 minutes. So if you guys want to get any more closing arguments here on this topic, go ahead and get them in now.
The question that I've kind of got for you guys is, who's familiar with the treaties that Russia has with China and China has with North Korea?
I'm not super familiar.
Economic treaties.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Trade agreements.
That's what I thought.
So the Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation that is between China and Russia, signed back in 2001, that does tie in the military component. And the treaty between China and North Korea for the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual
Assistance. Yeah, it's just combo. We're not really disagreeing on a whole lot.
That also has the military tie-in to it.
I don't like to really do the aggressive like debate stuff, honestly.
Flat out state that any of those three countries that wishes to invade or take military aggression towards a separate country, such as Russia and Ukraine or China and Taiwan, that's where they will not get the backing of the other two countries. However, if there is any aggression back towards Russia, back towards China, back towards North Korea, then that kicks in their treaties for military assistance. So when we're talking about China not looking like it's backing Russia, that's because they haven't gotten any true military kickback from NATO, from the US. They're basically in a holding position where they're literally just waiting for us to slip up or NATO to slip up.
It stresses me out, and I don't think anyone benefits. Just like what Cats and Frackler are saying, I don't think anybody really benefits from that shit at the end of the day. It's just entertainment, and I'm not here to shuck and jive and entertain y'all. I want to educate y'all.
40 plus years, they tie to each other. So
if you were entertained by being educated, then that's cool. But I'm not here to just do CTV shit, basically.
True NATO military support for Ukraine or boots on the ground, then that's where China has full authority to come in as part of that treaty to provide that assistance. And that's where we're going to be seeing the entire game change. And that's, if you're wanting to talk about what's going to kickstart World War III, that's where they're at, is they are literally trying to get NATO and the US into a checkmate position with this Ukraine conflict and waiting for us to slip up to a point where they'll finally have the opportunity to activate their alliance between those three countries. And unfortunately, their alliances do expand to places like India, places like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and literally that's the biggest point where the situation that we're in right now, there's a very, very fine line of the support and everything that we can possibly do for Ukraine without truly triggering that point of military aggression. And Putin wants to fire back and say that these sanctions are already being seen as an act of war. Per their treaties, that's not the case. There's no US or NATO bullets firing at them. There's no US or NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. So that's not activating their treaties. It's come down solely to the fact that he's trying to bait NATO and the US into getting boots on the ground and finding an excuse to activate these treaties.
So you're trying to tell me that a former KGB spy is trying to find a way to manipulate the West? I would have never seen that coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, Putin has been taking some pretty escalatory measures, putting his nuclear armament on standby, saying that our sanctions are already an act of war. Yeah, it does seem like he's kind of trying to like stir the pot a little bit. Does anyone have any
Oof, I'm
final
sorry,
thoughts
Bink.
before we go to the next topic?
Do you know why he put the nuclear armaments on standby?
I don't, but I'm assuming it's
'Cause
because
it
he wants to flex.
No, so it was because of comments made by the British Foreign Minister Liz Truss, the same woman who had been, before the war was declared, went to negotiate with Lavrov and said that she didn't recognize Russian sovereignty over oblasts that are in Russia because she's a fucking idiot.
Wow.
But she literally made comments on British TV, and the Kremlin said, "This is literally why we are making our nuclear armaments to ready because of comments made by her."
Oh wow.
She's
Rest
an
in peace.
incredibly stupid person.
Wait. Is this equivalent to a dumber thing than what Lindsey Graham recently said?
I was just
Oh
gonna
my
say, so Lindsey Graham
fucking
isn't an
God.
idiot then. All right.
Or to the new Trump quotes where we send F-22s with the China flag on them because
The difference is that Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump are not current secretaries of state, which is what Liz Truss is.
All right. Higher title,
She's literally
higher
our foreign
office.
secretary.
I will say before we transition this topic, I haven't spoken too much on my theories here, but I think that Putin has like two things in mind here. I did watch a part of his speech that he gave before he sent troops into Ukraine. It does feel very nationalist in the sense that
Ken Burns.
one of the things he said in his speech was that he thought that Ukraine and Russia were one people, and that that Ukraine does like owe them. So it seems as though he feels though he's entitled to this territory, that Russia is entitled to this territory, and that it was a mistake for previous Russian and Soviet leaders to relinquish their territory.
That Russian
It almost feels like
ultranationalism, baby.
It sounds more like it's like Russian manifest destiny or some nonsense like that. Also,
Ultranationalism.
yeah. Also, shout out to Real Life Lore. I mentioned this last night, but they did a great 30-minute video on this where they were bringing up some takes that I had never heard somebody else in this conflict so far. One of which being that Ukraine is apparently sitting on, I think, close to like 1 trillion tons of natural gas that was just recently discovered in the last few years.
They got hella uranium too.
Yeah.
Talking
So
about, like, Crimea or
actually,
yeah, some of it's in Crimea.
Yeah, Crimea. There's actually some by Kharkiv, and there's some in the western part, I think, south of Lviv. So it seems as though Russia might be going in there to do what every other Western nation does and suck up those resources.
Imperialism, highest form of capitalism.
Yeah. So it does seem like there might
Neoliberalism
be
for
a
the win.
financial component for this particular
Hell yeah.
invasion as well. But again, we're all just speculating here. So
And hence why my point about the European Economic Area, right? By them divesting from the Asian Economic Area, that just economically impacts Russia, unfortunately.
yeah, no, that's very true. We're gonna move on to our next topic here. So we're gonna tweak this a little bit. The question is looking at how the U.S., particularly Biden, has handled the situation so far. Do you like him more, less, or no change at all? And for our one panelist from the UK, you can kind of alter this to Boris Johnson and his approach in the UK. We're going to start with Endless Cemetery, I want you to go ahead and go first. Do you like the approach of Biden so far, and how's that make you feel about him any differently at all?
I think Biden is doing really the only thing that can be done. So, I don't know if I can really commend him for doing what almost anyone else would do in that situation. But, you know, I'm an abolitionist. So at the end of the day, I want the abolition of the United States government. So I don't really have an opinion on Biden one way or the other. But, yeah, I guess he's giving what he's supposed to give. You know what I mean? He's doing exactly what he's expected to do. So.
All right, that's a fair answer. James, I want you to go ahead and go next.
So I'll kind of start out with, I honestly don't think that.
What up,
Biden really has
Mistopheles? Biden is
very
way better than
good
Trump.
decision since
Sort
he
of.
has been in office. In terms of how he should have handled the situation different, I think that when Putin was going back and forth with him about trying to
Biden is
ensure
up
NATO
plus
was not
12
gonna-
since
or
Ukraine,
was
Russia.
not gonna
That's
be
fucking
become a
nuts.
member of
American
NATO,
people are brain dead.
I think that that would have been a
I don't
very
think
good opportunity
Biden.
for
There's
Biden to step
there's
up
some
and
areas where
tell
Biden is like not
okay,
different from
well,
Trump at all.
as
Low
things
key,
stand,
high key.
Ukraine will not be a part of NATO. However, if Russia, if you decides to take any sort of aggression towards Ukraine, then at that point in
That's
time,
true. Cats.
we will bring Ukraine into the NATO alliance and use that as a deterrent instead of just telling them, no, it's okay, we're not going to do anything.
Nixon was better than
We're
Trump.
not really sure about it
Yeah.
at this point in time.
Yeah, I guess.
Because
That's
Biden did
fair.
was
Because Nixon was
exactly
actually
what
afraid
he was
of the
wanting,
United States
and
public.
we're all seeing exactly how
White
that's
man
playing out,
mediocrity
and
for the win. It wins
unfortunately,
every time.
that's playing out in the loss of lives in Ukraine.
All right, so next we're going to go to No Justice.
So I can't speak to things leading up to the conflict with regards to what Biden's done. I do not know, so I can only go by what James is saying there. But as since the conflict has broken out, I think that I've just seen reasonably okay actions from Biden. I think I agree with Endless Cemetery and that he's done what most leaders would do. And considering that my
Basically,
expectations
Kev.
for the Democratic Party on foreign policy are extremely fucking low, he's very slightly exceeded that. And in general with his foreign policy decisions so far, which is better than I expected. As for Boris Johnson, I think is so far with regards to his opinions on the no-fly zone, he's actually explicitly said no, which I think is a good thing. As for the sanctions, he's been pathetic. He's allowed all the Russian oligarchs in which he's tried to sanction. He's given them time to sell off their assets, which defeats the whole fucking point. Literally, is allowing Roman Abramovich to sell Chelsea
Right.
Football Club. Like what the. He's selling it. He's keeping all the money. That does nothing. That literally does nothing. And with regards to the acceptance of refugees in a post-war world, the entirety of our government have been pathetic. It's been, quite frankly, an insult to the people of Ukraine that we have not been accepting of refugees, that we've been taken so long to even approve visas for people who have family in the UK. Outside of that, the response has been, quite frankly, absolutely ridiculous from the Conservative government, as I would be expect, as we're just being run by clowns in this country, quite frankly.
All right, Alucard Hex, what are your thoughts on the Western response so far?
So for the Western response, I think I'm broadly okay. For Biden specifically, I don't think I'm very impressed because the United States has only gotten the temporary protected status thing through, which it basically just means that Ukrainians that are already in the U.S. will not be deported, which is not a whole lot, less than what the EU is giving at the moment, less than what
I
Canada
think she is
giving
pretty
at the moment.
based.
So I'm pretty.
I haven't seen her
disappointed with
before
that in terms
either.
of
I saw her on Hickey
refugee,
rescue rather,
aid.
she said
In
she
terms of
appeared
the
on Hippie
sanctions,
Dippy
I think some of them
Recruitment,
have
but
been
I'm not
okay.
sure.
The
I haven't
bigger
seen her
stuff,
before,
like
but
SWIFT,
she does seem pretty
honestly,
based.
that wouldn't have.
Seems like she fucks with
that wasn't
magic,
for the
so
US
that's
to
cool.
decide in the first place. So I think that was largely contingent on support from countries like Hungary and Serbia and Cyprus. So I think on that end, once again, I think the only reason that ever went through was because Putin just went nuts and decided to, I don't know, go full anime villain in his declaration of war speech.
Anime villain.
So, and also even for a lot of the sanctions that have been raining upon Russia in the last couple of days, a lot of those have just been private companies deciding to pull out of the market for one reason or another, but that wasn't like a direct thing by the US government. So yeah, so once again, with the Biden administration specifically, lastly, also the jets thing, I don't think they've been pushing that hard enough. But yeah, so basically with the Biden administration specifically, I am not very impressed with the West overall. I think it's been fairly okay.
All right, Hardwood and Sock, you are next. What is your response?
All right, so this is going to surprise a few people here, but I think Biden's been fucking based, okay, about his response to this, okay? I don't like Biden, all right, but I feel like his administration is doing all that they can do in this situation, right? Like they're sanctioning as much as they can. They're trying to give humanitarian aid. They're giving military aid, you know, aside from boots on the ground or jets. They're like steadfast on no boots on the ground. They're steadfast in no to a no-fly zone, and that's great, you know. And what's actually been super frustrating to me as a, you know, quote unquote Trump supporter, right, is, you know, seeing people who are Trump supporters basically being like, oh, this wouldn't have happened under Trump. I've been getting in arguments all the time with like people on quote unquote my side. And like I've actually changed a few of their minds, which is cool. Because
That's crazy.
It's like one thing like I actually support is like, hey, you know, give humanitarian aid, just let's not go to war. And like I'm like half surprised that Biden didn't
Thank
actually
you,
put
Big
boots
Eights.
on the ground.
Am I following you? I'm gonna follow you if I'm not.
You know, and I'm pleasantly surprised, and I think that's great. I think that we just need to hold the line, you know, like not necessarily.
He's center right. He's so close to being on the left.
It completely, you know, hurts us and other people's other countries as well.
I wonder why he's
in
on the
regards
right.
to sanctions. Like, I know we're going to get into the oil conversation.
What group of people does he hate? Why is he on the right?
What we're doing is great. It doesn't mean I like him anymore. It just means that, you know, hey, on this one issue, I can't criticize him that much. You know what I mean?
Okay. And finally, Fresh Faces, New Ideas. Go ahead and round us out with your perspective.
I think like the ability to have gotten out the information that they got out about Russia's movements.
I thought I was already following you, Big Eights,
trying
but
to
I
rally
hadn't
the West,
followed you.
They did a good job. I'm less impressed with the internal stuff. I think, as I alluded to earlier with No Justice, I think the State of the Union would have been the perfect time to argue for a shift away from fossil fuels, directly as a way of national security. And him not bringing that up, I think, is a failure. Although I have a problem with the State of the Union the refugee stuff.
Because that's why
I
Monty
don't know how much the US
identifies
has
as
done
conservative.
to bring people over. I
So
think
that might be it.
the UK's gotten like 57, I believe, is the number I thought I saw. I don't know if that's accurate. I do know that if they try to
Or
do
at
that,
least
I'd
that's
be
what
very
I'm
curious
told
to see
about
if
him.
the fervor to these immigrants is that these refugees is the same that we saw after
Montreal
Afghanistan.
player, and
I
I've
doubt
seen
it
him
will
say
be.
some really sus stuff about trans
But look,
people.
I think the overall the sanctioning has been okay. The rallying the West together he seems like he did a solid job. I think
You think Trump would actually help Putin? Absolutely.
It took an extra week for them to figure this
I
out.
mean,
That
the most
seems like
fervent
the
Trump supporters are
simple
also
thing, but
super
my
horny
biggest
for
issue is
Russia.
the
So I
failure
should tell you
to
something right
tie
there.
this directly into a shift into green.
But I'm not making this about Trump supporters.
All right. So now we're going to go ahead and open up to the full panel here. Anyone can respond to anyone's take. And yeah, have at it, everyone.
Nah, I feel like everybody
Fresh
is
face.
low key
Let's
based.
get into the oil conversation, all right?
All right, good, because I know you've been chomping at the bit for this.
I just want to throw out. I feel like everybody is low key kind of based. We've all had pretty good takes, I think, but I want to see y'all get into it. It's gonna be entertaining for me.
All right. So, while yes, I could agree with you that hey, we should push, you know, like away from fossil fuels maybe a little bit here, but I mean, I would have liked to see him come out in the State of the Union and be like, hey, we need to produce more oil here domestically. All right. I would have loved to see that because in order to
he's
get
that
away
type of
from,
conservative. Never mind.
Fossil fuels in this current moment, it's going to take so long, right? So whereas we can try to ramp up production, try to ramp up, you know, more imports from, you know, Saudi Arabia or whatever to try to like alleviate our issue, which I know we don't get a ton of oil from Russia, but to try and help us out
Freckle.
a little bit, right? And if we produce more domestically, well, then I would be like, hey, let's get away from Russian oil, but we don't do that right now.
If I could
well-
interject, I think that we could actually, if the motivation and the money was there, we could pretty fairly quickly transition to green energy. But go ahead, Fresh Faces.
And actually, he's right. The money already is there. So let me push back on this. A couple things. I think that I want to be clear. I'm not saying that we drop all oil independence immediately. That's asinine. That would basically collapse every country if they attempted to do that.
Right. You can't do that.
I think that we're doing this in two ways, and I wish that green energy was the larger push. So I think the fact that they're reaching out to like Venezuela and Iran to get some of the oil reserves, I think, is a positive step. I think
I don't
that
know if I can
also
co-sign
we have
that
to
one,
acknowledge that
Mustapha.
our natural
I hate
gas
Trump. Trump
output
sucks. I
is
don't
higher
know
in
if I can
21
co-sign that
21
one.
than it was in
Slippery
20.
slope for
It's
me.
going to be higher in 22 than it was this year. It's going to be higher in 23. So the idea that like the federal
I
government
also
would only
don't
control
believe
something like
in
26%
United States
of
government.
all land for fracking can really produce that much extra energy. I don't think is
Antithesis.
possible. I don't know. I haven't looked in directly into the numbers, so I don't know where we are ultimately in our ability to reach out and produce more oil. know
I
natural
agree with
gas,
you,
we're already
Freckle.
slated to do more. Now, as for
See,
the
I'm
ability to
also a
move
prison
into more
abolitionist,
effective green
so
energy,
I
as
don't know
alluded
if
to
I
last
can
night,
do.
the largest
We'll do this.
land auction for energy.
We could throw Trump in a re-education camp.
$7
You know what I
billion dollars
Throw him in a re-education camp
to
or
buy a piece
something.
of land off of
Gulag 'em.
New Jersey and Long Island for a 3-mile island to build wind farms. This is currently a thing that's being ramped up. The thing that I wanted from the Biden administration was to point out how the actual U.S. military and the Pentagon has said the number one threat to the future of this country is climate change, and that's why we need to pivot into a full scale both nuclear, green energy push, and that needs to be done now because it would both increase our job production, it would decrease our dependence on foreign adversaries that we don't really have control over. It would take us out of the actual cartel that is OPEC, and it would allow us to be more stable as a country. I believe that, and I think the way he should have phrased this is, look, I understand gas prices are going to be high for a little bit. That's why I'm going to do either some type of extra set of taxes that we can take away from the fossil fuel companies or threaten their
what is that?
Threaten their subsidies.
I'm old. You gotta explain this stuff to
They're all producing
me.
massive profits anyway, so they don't have to be jacking up these prices to do the things that they're doing. So I think there is ways for him to have said this that are be like, look, I acknowledge that it's going to hurt people, and maybe if it came down to it, he said, look, we're going to do these other things, but on top of that, I'm going to send you another $1,200 stimulus check. Like, there's ways around this that I wish he had done that I think would have been effective.
Memes.
James
Is
very
it
against
also-
stimulus checks. Hold on, James. Come on in.
Also, I was just going to say, as far as I'm aware,
Reparations.
I know both in the UK. I know in the UK for certain. I'm pretty sure in the US, all of the unions that represent like the coal industry and the oil industry, these unions are on board with
If
a
by
move
unions
towards
you
green
mean Joe
energy.
Manchin, then yes.
Well, the coal miners in Joe Manchin's state have said they are for the Green New Deal and for Build Back Better, which he killed.
Exactly, as long as on the proviso of like a state retraining program, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. Yeah.
Go ahead, James.
Let's still
Tell us
take me
why
against them.
stimulus checks are the wrong answer.
So I'll start with the stimulus checks, then going to roll back to the transition between fossil fuels.
Yes,
to the green
Mephistopheles.
energy side of
Yes,
things. So
UBI, but also
when it comes
abolish
to
money.
the stimulus check portion, those had a purpose in the very beginning, but by rolling out these multiple stimulus checks and basically providing free money to the American citizens, that's not only caused inflation to.
I don't know
take
about
off,
that one, Chief.
No, that's not accurate. That
I
is
don't
not
know about
accurate.
that one, Chief.
Wait, hold on. When
Well-
you talk about the checks, we're not talking about the child tax credit, right? That's a totally separate thing that we're not talking about, right?
I'm just talking about the stimulus checks.
Okay.
And the main reason for that is because of the fact that the amount of stimulus checks that have actually been sent out, there is so much wasted money from the past stimulus checks that was not ever received. The Biden administration is wanting to funnel more and more money in to these stimulus checks to send out the free money, which has shown is keeping people out of the workforce, which is causing the economy to start
No.
heading into a decline. And the inflation portion, we can disagree on that all day long, but there's a reason that the inflation right now is the highest that it's been in over 40 years.
Oh yeah, capitalism.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
wait,
there's a lot of reasons behind it.
yeah,
but-
but hold on, like
Because a lot of companies made record profits. Am I wrong about
Yeah.
that? Or
no, it's a
not.
supply chain issue. It's a supply chain issue that led to a lot of it. It's not just giving, like, studies show over and over again, if you hand people money, it affects their lives positively. There's
Increases the buyer power of the working
Yeah,
class.
I'm a freight
the
handler,
biggest,
yeah.
the biggest
Was the-
consumers by percentage are the members of the working class, are the people who then spend all of the stimulus money you give them. It goes back into the economy. It stimulates economic activity.
Yeah, if we're
we finally
talking
have some
like
just-
disagreements on the panel.
just
Here we are.
just off of like there's two perfect examples. First off, this is the broadest example, and this is like
yeah,
the
I don't care
biggest
about
failure,
inflation or
I
debt
think,
either.
of,
Money
like,
is
messaging.
made up.
The
Money
child
is fake.
tax credit raised something.
It's fake.
between
It was
12
all
and 20
cake.
million
It
children
was
out of
cake the
poverty,
whole time.
And in the 1 month that it dropped, in the month of January,
Exactly, Mistopheles.
3.7 million children fell into poverty in 1 month because we stopped sending them somewhere between, I think it was like 300 to 600, varying on the kid. And this is entirely due to like 17 people that this is
And
happening.
that was also 10.2 billion that was given to the illegal immigrants that came up here that received the child tax credit without even being a citizen of the United States.
The
Okay.
question I have really quickly about all this is, can we define like how exactly inflation does happen? Because in my understanding, in a consumer-based economy, when you give money to consumers, that should prop up the whole system, right? Like, how would that be a net negative by giving the consumer class more money to consume?
Oh, it's because the people who own the means of production and own everything say, "Oh, you have more money." Well, guess what? I want more of your money, so I'm going to charge more for
It
no
does
reason.
seem like there's a huge hint of price gouging going on here, because you can't at the same, if you're raising your prices, that would say to me that you are feeling constrained somewhere along your supply chain. But if you're at the same time as you're raising prices, you're also having record profits. It doesn't really support.
Yeah,
the
illegal
whole
immigrants.
argument
Yeah,
of,
that's
you know,
crazy.
giving people
That's
extra
fucking
money is a
crazy.
bad thing.
That was sus as
And
fuck.
The other example is we
I'm
just
trying
had
not
the,
to go too crazy though.
in California. I want to say it's Stockholm. I always forget the Stanford. They gave people $500 for like a
Stockton,
year.
California. Yes.
Yeah. And they followed what
Mini.
and they gave them like $500 every or
Yeah,
I think
let's
it was a
let's
month for
blame
a
let's
while.
blame
They
the
tracked these
most
people for a while.
vulnerable
And
people.
they found they found like almost no waste, and it improved almost everyone's cost of life. Like, this is why Andrew Yang is like should have been better, because he was offering an actual policy that could have helped people. He's just a bad politician.
Yeah, that he
I'll
is.
tell him that if I meet him.
Please, I know you've contacts with the People's Party, and I do want to talk to them, because I read his original statement and it kind of sounded like a child wrote it. But like giving money has overall been proven time and time again to be effective to helping people. So
Sock, I know you want to jump in here. Go ahead.
I
know
agree,
we've gotten
Minnie.
away
Yeah,
from
Andrew
the
Yang had
energy
very
part of
poorly
this,
thought out
And
Oh, it's
James, I do want to
policies.
say this in general. I would love to have an actual conversation with you about like your entirety of your campaign.
A Wall
at a
Street
totally different time.
speculation.
I think that
Yes,
would be
I'm gonna
a-
I'm gonna throw
a
that out
really
there.
good, thing if you want to do that in the future.
Inflation is a total fallacy. It
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
All right. So, like, in regards to like the inflation shit, real quick, before I bring it back to Ukraine and whatnot, because I feel like that's the main topic. While yes, there
That's why
probably
I'm trying
is,
not to
like,
go too crazy.
a slight increase in price that a lot of these companies are doing to drive up profits. Like, there is still a massive supply chain crunch, right? You have to remember that during the pandemic, like before the pandemic, we were largely like a service economy, right?
Oh
We
yeah,
weren't like
absolutely.
a commodity economy, right? Where we're buying, goods.
This
right?
is correct.
And whereas after, or during, while we turn into, like we're buying all these goods that need to be shipped in, we're not spending as much money on services because all these places were closed down.
Because everybody's getting
You
COVID.
don't necessarily want to be around people,
'Cause
like
COVID.
your life changed, right? So now, like, if you're just going by supply and demand, well, the demand just like shot up through the roof, right, for all these goods, and the supply
No, the man shot up for
hasn't
labor.
necessarily been keeping up, right? So when supply, it's like a big freaking circle, you know? So like we can't just point to, you know, oh, it's the companies, they're the bad guys, or, you know, oh, it's only the supply chain issue. No, like
Just to interject,
companies are Go
I,
ahead.
I was gonna say because I'm a freight handler, and I will say that it's a little of both. There's definitely extreme demand for labor because of COVID. So, like at my warehouse, there's a heavy demand for other workers, right? Because we're understaffed, but at the same time, you still have capitalism where the manager is figuring out, okay, I need people, but I also want to pay them the least possible amount of money that I can without them all deciding to quit at the same time. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
throw that out there.
You know, I hear you. We actually have kind of something in common there. I'm actually a local truck driver. So
Hey,
what's up?
hey, let's go.
But you know, like, so to just blame it all on the companies, I don't think is the right thing to do.
I
Which is
definitely
why
think
I'm
it
a
is.
centrist, and everyone freaking hates me because it's like you see everything that's happening, right? But anyway,
Companies
going
are
back
bad
to
guys,
like
yes.
Brave to
Ukraine.
be a centrist in this current society.
Oh, I love every second of it.
And counterpoints. That's about it.
Everybody freaking hates me. But bringing it back to like Ukraine, like
I'm
and,
going to be
like,
polite.
relating that into the energy costs and whatnot, right? Like Fresh Faces, I believe you were proposing this. I don't know about other people, but getting off of Russian oil like immediately, right? And but in doing that, like it's not exactly feasible at this moment unless we have that replacement for that oil, right? That's coming in, right? Gas prices are like going through the roof here,
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
sure it would be worse in the EU where they get more of their energy supply from Russia, right?
Right.
Than we do, right? Like so, for instance, on Thursday, you know, where I
That
live,
affects everything too.
gas
I'm
prices
sure he
jumped
knows this.
20
He's a truck
cents in
driver.
1 hour and 8 hours, right? Like they started at $3.99. You go home from work, guess what? Hey, it's $4.20. You know, it's like $4.19 and like the 99 over 100. You know how they do that? I don't know why the fuck they do that, but
Right.
you know, so like we are seeing like in a disruption in the supply
Exactly,
right
Frackle.
now, and we haven't even cut off the Russian oil, right? If we cut off the Russian oil, well, then it's going to go up even more, you know. So it's kind of like what we're caught, and I'm sure the EU, you know,
That's facts,
No Justice,
Frackle.
I'm sure you could speak to this more. What like you guys probably even get more energy, like on a percentage scale from Russia than we do.
Oh, yeah.
So you would be fucking your own country too. So that's why it's such a hard decision to do, right? And I don't think
It's
that it's going to have that drastic of an impact on Russia's resolve in this conflict, you know, which is why I don't necessarily want to see that done, right? Because the sanctions that we're already imposing are enough to cripple the economy. I mean, yes, by cutting off oil
Centrism
would
is
destroy
wild.
the economy, but
Centrism is
it's
wild,
like
for sure.
I think we've already done enough, you know, as far as sanctions, and over time it'll, you know, work its way out.
I'm going to jump in really quickly here. We haven't heard from Alucard or from No Justice in a while. Alucard, you to just jump in here first, then No Justice follow up after that. Jump into the conversation. You can reply to Sock, or you can just take it in a different direction if you want to.
Yeah, so I think in the United States we're mostly fine. There are a lot of other places where we can find oil. Obviously, we'll go through some price increases. Right now, we're going through a price spike, but I think it will even out over time, more or less. I think the European Union and just Europe in general is a broader concern because they're having like actual shortages over there in terms of like natural gas and stuff, where some places
Exactly, boy
are
meets many.
like struggling to heat their homes literally. So that is, I think, a broader problem. I think we need to, you know, get these guys back on track, supply them with more of the American.
You know
natural
my
gas,
feel. If
get
everybody
places
was
like
able to generate their own
Germany
energy
off
with
their
solar
bullshit
panels,
and, you know,
Stirling
get them
engines,
to kind of
I'm the
start
solar
using
punk.
more
I'm on the
nuclear
solar
because,
punk
you know,
vibes.
I think it's really weird
You
they
feel me?
shut down
That's what
all
I'm
their
on.
nuclear
That's
plants,
the
and now
time
they
I'm
are
on.
bringing back coal plants. Like nice.
Dude,
So yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Nuclear makes me like so mad, and this is why them shelling that station is like so frustrating.
Yeah, that shit's crazy.
Like just on the fact that like we should be doing more nuclear. Like that should be the only thing
Absolutely.
we're building. Is because just on the dumbest. I'm sorry, this is like a really dumb tangent that I have an idea that could like potentially stop some things. Sea levels are going to rise to a certain level anyway. Like we can't stop that at some point. So like a really stupid person's idea to solve this would be to produce nuclear powered desalination machines and run them constantly in the hope that the thousands of gallons that we could turn into useful water doesn't end up drowning a city. Now, I don't know how effective that would be. It's just a pipe dream.
That's not very effective for several reasons.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that, but then we have to get to No Justice next. The problem with desalination, which is why most countries aren't doing it, is because when you actually like pump water through the machines in that reverse osmosis way, you're also having to extract the salts from the water, which leaves a bunch of brine. And that shit
fucks machines up.
They currently don't have an answer for what to do with that leftover brine other than tossing it back into the fucking ocean, which would cause its own ecological problems. But No Justice, go ahead and join our conversation.
I mean, I think, and I agree with most people with regards to finding other ways of being able to obtain natural gas. There is a shortage in the EU. Luckily, in the UK, we have a price control. So, I mean, the prices have shot up by 50%, but the price cap has increased. The office that deals with that has increased the price cap, which is going to put huge numbers of UK homes below the poverty level because of the increase in prices. But it's going to become the point where we're not going to be able to rely on Russian gas anymore. We're going to have to divest it at some point, and
that sounds cool, Freckle. I definitely want to see that.
For people who know more than I do about this issue, but there are plenty of European countries that absolutely correctly will not be able to heat the homes at all because of the lack of natural gas.
Damn, Mistopheles.
Reason for a green
nice,
revolution,
Freckle.
But there will need to be at least
this
some
panel's
level
kind of cool. I don't
other
typically
supply
do panels
that's gonna need to be taken with
for that reason.
or
Boy
European
Meets Many.
states
This
that
is the
are
first
able
one I've done
to
since the
bridge
Black
the
History
gap
Month
between
ones.
now and when that future green economy.
And then those, the only
exists, which
person I
does not
really
at the moment, because
kind of
there is-
thought was
there-
wild was
there
that
has
dude
been very
Ellen
little political will
DeGenerate.
to do so.
All right, I just want to say, like, I'm very pro like green energy, like that's cool, but I'm just saying, like, in regards to response to the Ukrainian, invasion
yeah.
right now, it's just like we shouldn't be making that drastic of a change, at wholesale, just to try, and really force the issue. Like, I'm fine, like, if we're like incentivizing that stuff, but like in regards to just cutting off Russian oil and energy, and then just going like balls to the wall, Green New Deal, it's
would
a
die.
longer process.
People would
it's
die.
a very long process. So it's like, that's what I mean. Like, we're kind of screwed right now. Like, yeah, we need to invest more in green energy, but we can't
That's
just
a
be like,
long-term plan.
yeah,
If not now, when?
it's not like a quick, snap of the fingers and hey, see you later, Russia oil. You know what I mean? That was
After
kinda
he
my
finishes,
approach.
I'll go.
The
Yeah,
problem,
yeah,
though,
sure.
I think with what you're talking about, Sock, is that
That's right. Boy
I
Meets
think
Many.
our government has been dragging its feet when it comes to investing
That's
into green
true.
energy.
See,
And
this
so
is
while,
where we get into the good stuff.
A full scale, like let's go full Green New Deal right now would probably be the answer. I mean, they've been dragging their feet at every turn for this, and right now you're even seeing two Republican
People have been fighting
senators
it.
who are masquerading as
That's
Democrats.
yeah, exactly,
John
Freckle.
Tester and Joe
It's giving
Manchin are
liberalism.
now
It's
calling
liberal
for extra
vibes.
drilling, which in the short term might be the answer if you're trying to offset what you're like capping off on the Russian side. If you want to send more oil and natural gas to Europe, who are so dependent on Russian oil and gas, especially over in Germany and Italy. But in the long term, I just feel like it's going to be another excuse to not invest in green energy the way that we should be doing right now. I mean, we have to be doing, I think probably the real answer is to do both right now with a lot more energy behind it. I guess, like metaphorically speaking, because we're not putting a good enough investment into the future right now.
Right. I would say, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say really quick, just to kind of round everybody's stuff together. Like when it comes to like hospitals and stuff like that, who are dependent on a certain degree of that type of energy, keep them going and like wean them off. But like the average citizen and like municipalities and stuff, I think would definitely benefit personally, but also, in the interest of combating climate change. To definitely go all in on that. But I'm the crazy lefty on this subject. I am the solar punk weirdo. So
I actually, one thing that we don't talk about barely at all, if ever, when it comes to green energy is geothermal energy. I would love to see us investing more into that. That actually might be like the holy grail of all energy, and it would probably be safer than damn near anything else and more effective.
All right, can I
Things-
pop
I
in
think
real
I was
quick?
Yeah, come on in.
All right. I just wanted to bring this back to the Russia end of things, where I would say, in terms of weighing whether we should cut off Russian oil or not on the Russia end. So like, where it seems clearly that like the goal of sanctions right now is regime change. So you should sort of consider like, okay, I guess how likely is that us to
Subsidies.
actually advance? as
Oh
far as
yeah,
prices
for
of
sure.
How many?
If we stop funding that
I guess
shit, it
Russian
wouldn't
jobs
be
would disappear if
nearly
we
as
were to
profitable.
sanction them in that way and stuff like that. So I think that is one dimension that we would. need
You're
to
absolutely
consider. And
correct,
frankly, I
Freckle.
mean, I can't put that analysis together. I'm not like a big natural resources expert, but yeah, that's just just bringing it back to it, so that we don't just look at the
Exactly.
American
You are correct,
dimension of
Freckle.
things.
Well,
As
I mean,
usual.
The fact that the ruble is less than a penny now, I think, is probably going to have a larger impact than the fact that like they haven't done trading in a week. I think that's going to be more of an effect than us stopping it. And we're not going to do it overnight. We're going to have to first set up like because I agree, we can't just drop Russian oil on a dime. We're going to have to
Exactly,
think
boy meets
supplementing it
many.
with like Venezuelan or Iranian oil, whoever we find to
Saudi
pick up the
Arabia.
pace.
That's why I'm like,
Well,
yeah,
it's not
I
like
want
we
my,
don't
I
let
want to
them
live
do
in an
whatever
echo
the fuck they
chamber.
want
I want to
anyway,
live in a
so,
leftist echo chamber because why do I
is
need to
going to take
hear
some time.
all the
So it-
goofiest
and
arguments from the
possibly
other side when I
may
could
not
just
even
hear the
come to
best
fruition 'cause this
arguments
thing might
that
be
get
over
clapped anyway?
before we have all the supply lines and all the deals worked out anyway. I think the real issue was not starting to tie this into a shift to the green energy because look, the money is there. There is like trillions of dollars waiting to be unlocked and pushed into this. If we just like put tax credits into it, if we just remove some of the we focus on subsidies, if we put the physical government power behind it, like it's there. There's a reason that massive payday just came for wind energy because a group is going to pay that much money for wind energy. They're going to then turn around and say to all the governmental people, hey, look, we paid all this money for it. Give us some type of break for us to make a profit so we will continue to do this. And if it's for that, I'm okay with it. I mean, if we're going to have lobbyists for the planet and they're doing for green energy, I'm okay with it. I wish we had some nuclear lobbyists doing some more stuff. But
Based.
the money is there. Like it has the ability to be there. I think, look, there is no really great answer. I think the truthful thing that Biden should have said was, look, this is going to hurt. We're going to do our best to make the pain as minimal as possible, either by finding other sources of doing it, either doing something with subsidies for the oil companies so that they're not jacking up prices, possibly doing suspending some taxes for
Some fucking dog
citizens,
barking in my
like a
neighborhood.
gas
I'm gonna
tax or
close my
something,
window.
or sending you some type of stimulus, something. But we have to start moving away from this. There is no better proof that we cannot rely on foreign oil because look, the
Liberalism
truth
is
it
extremely
as
frustrating
much as you want
because
to
they're
hoot
so
and rah
close,
about
but still
American
so far.
exceptionalism and America being able to funnel our own energy, we can't. We do not have the resources for it to sustain our way of life for an extended period of time. So like this, even
That's not
saying that like, hey,
entirely
we
true.
have the ability to ramp this up. is a
Thank you,
short-term
Freckle.
solution. And I wish you'd just been more honest about that because I think that first off decapitates literally all the arguments by saying, look, we have the ability to do it now. We're going to do it for a short term, but it's not a long-term solution. And then it solves the overall problem of us not relying on anybody else because we can't. And
Oh,
Let me,
it's gotta
push
be
back on that a
insane,
little bit.
boy
I think
meets
we're gonna
many.
Kind of like wind down to our end here. We are currently energy independent. We have been for a few years now. So we do have a net export as far as energy is concerned here in America. So I'm not sure how long that's sustainable for, but we are currently operating in a place where we are sending out more than we're taking in. So I don't know that we really have a true dependence on foreign energy at the
But
moment.
we're getting 40% of our energy from Canada. I mean, it's not. I mean, I know we
No,
don't
no, we
consider
we do import energy, but I'm saying we export more than we import. So I'll say
The
in a
big
sense, we
issue with
are-
regards to
we are
the United
independent.
States is petroleum rather than
petroleum
rather
is
than
the- is
like
the issue,
rather
yeah.
than energy generation, right?
That's weird because for crude we get like 7% from Russia, but for petroleum I think it's closer to 30. If I read those numbers right. But like either way, the whole point of it should have been I get it, it's gonna hurt, but in the long run, even like there's so many ways to point to this, like just on the militaristic, you think that you're like, oh, China and Russia, the like people say China and Russia are the biggest threats. Like the military said like like a couple of years ago, the number one threat to U.S.
It's climate
US
change.
government is climate change. Like if you're gonna put this, if we're gonna put the another $800 billion into the military this year, let's have them focus on building roads, building energy plants. We're gonna spend this.
We gotta fund the police, Jack.
I mean, that doesn't really happen at the federal level anyway. I mean, that's more of a local and state government.
It does when you stimulate states, and then you vote against stimulating states, so that the states can then use that money to fund the police. Yeah, that's when the federal government gets involved with it.
So
it does throw it entirely has shone light on 50 years of neglect and inaction on environmental issues, because we've known that these have been issues for an incredibly long time, but there's never been the will to do so because it's not been in the interest of capital. The market has not decided that it's good to do it until the entire fate of the world hangs in the balance with regards to climate change. Right? We've just in the UK, it was only
exactly,
a few months
Frackle.
ago, we had protesters literally lying on the ground in the middle of the road.
And yes, and pandemics. Yes,
the governments do something as simple as backdating insulation into homes in the UK. The house I live in is almost a century old, and it's not insulated, and that is obviously increasing our energy bills, making it harder for me to heat my home. Huge amounts of the housing stock in the UK is like this, and suddenly
no
we have an
justice
issue
is
with
based.
natural gas, and people can't afford to heat their homes. The heating bills are too high, moving them into the poverty range. That's an issue with successive states for an incredibly long time, successive governments not engaging in the level of investment that is needed to do so to prevent these kind of things happening, not just for climate catastrophe, but for our dependence on foreign fossil fuels as well, right?
All right, thank you everyone. I think we're gonna actually have one little mini topic before we close out, because this was a Ukraine panel, so I want to bring it back to where we started.
Bonus meme.
Yes. So just really quickly, and I want to leave this open, no opening statements, so just open panel really, but I do want to hear from everyone at one point. How do you want this crisis in Ukraine ultimately to end? What do you think the end should look like? I'm going to leave it pretty open-ended so that I can just, let your imagination take place. Anyone can start. How do you want this to end?
Let the Ukrainian dude speak first.
Hey, thanks. All right. Well, I think it would be sweet if Putin and Lukashenko got dragged through the streets of their respective capitals. I think that would be the sweetest outcome imaginable. I really don't think that, this needs to be the way it is. I believe that Belarus and Russia and everyone else in that sphere of influence can be free. But obviously right now, it's a little bit difficult, which is why I'm saying, give my boys more juice, push the guns through, get the jets going. Let's go.
Based.
All right. Anyone else jump in?
The problem I have is that at the point at which something like regime change is happening in Belarus and Russia, at that point where things are so bad that regime change is happening, how many Ukrainians have died at this point? That's the issue that I have, is the point at which things are so bad that the regime change is a possibility in Russia. There's going to be incredible amounts of deaths, both civilian and military, on both sides of the conflict. So I would rather have quicker peace sooner than regime change as a long-term goal. Although anything that ends the conflict, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. Peace is something that I think is the most important thing at this point, as I said. So if that involves some kind of negotiation with regards to the status of Donetsk and Luhansk, I think as part of the peace agreement, I will be willing to accept that.
I think that's where it's. I think ultimately I think Russia's gonna control those two areas, and then they'll be semi-autonomous zones or whatever. Like Russia said that they're republics. I don't even remember what he declared them
independent
as.
states.
Yeah, independent.
Yeah.
So they'll be like Russian puppet
like
states,
autonomous zones, I guess.
Oh no, they won't be their own states. They'll just bring them in like they did with Crimea.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
Yeah,
not a
okay,
thing.
They'll be their
that's probably
own
what-
states.
That's what it will
Yeah.
probably be, and then maybe something on NATO. I don't know. Like I don't know how much further like they can get, because I think really the place where they really Russia ultimately made the biggest misstep was moving beyond those two areas. I think if they had stayed in the Donbass and the Luhansk area, I think they would have been accepted. But the fact that they pushed in further to try to take Kyiv and and take the whole country, I think that was ultimately their biggest mistake.
All right, somebody else?
I mean, ideally, I'd like to see Russia just fuck off and give Crimea back to Ukraine. But unfortunately, like, I don't think that's going to be reality. I'm actually very like doomer on it. Unfortunately, like I feel like Russia's resolve in this war
Facts, Bank.
is very, very strong. And I worry that it's going to collapse Ukraine as we know it today. And I personally feel like it's going to turn into Russia's Afghanistan, you know, in comparison to, you know,
Again?
America. You know, yeah, again, unfortunately, like I think like the Ukrainian people's resolve is very, very strong. And I think the insurgency is going to be like, it's going to be insane. You know, I don't see Russia holding that territory for too long, but I don't necessarily see a situation that this gets resolved diplomatically, where Russia just keeps the eastern regions.
Yeah. The Ukrainians been fighting for their independence for fucking ever. So it's going to be a war of attrition. And, you know, war bad. I feel like we can all agree on that take. So ideally, like Sak was just saying, ideally Russia would just fuck off. But I guess we'll see what happens.
One of
It's
the
also
issues
like-
I have is that if you do get a peace agreement based upon the autonomous regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, like the DPR and LPR being fundamentally recognized on a worldwide level, the issue I have
Libs are
there
being
is once you've
Russophobic
essentially
these
given Russia
days.
what they
Libs
want,
don't know
which
what the fuck they
is
believe.
encroachment
Libs just want to
into
maintain
Ukrainian territory, but
cultural
obviously with Crimea
hegemony.
and in the Donbass, then that essentially vindicates their policy of engaging in military action with which to get their competitor nations to cede territory. And where does that
It's funny to
dynamic
me
end?
that
That's
James
like
has
the
been
biggest
hella
issue I have.
quiet since he
It's a
made
great
that
question.
immigration
Really quickly,
Problem is-
statement.
Hold on,
I
really
look-
quickly.
I-
James,
I-
go ahead and give us your statement
Okay.
on this before we jump back in.
So I gotta agree with Alucard is they need as many resources as possible to try to fight off and make the Russians suffer to the point where they exhaust their resources. And if that's shipping over any aircrafts, fighter jets, whatever that are about to be decommissioned here, at least they're going to be going to a good cause and some defensive strategies, trying to get Ukraine set up with the resources necessary for a Ukrainian Iron Dome to stop
That shit's crazy,
some of
Minnie.
these
I'm sorry.
missile
I just saw
attacks.
it about that
Like, there's
de-Russification,
a lot that
international
we
cultural
should
balance.
be doing for
That's
the
sussy as
defense
fuck.
of Ukraine
That's
as
pretty
much
fucking
as we
sus.
can with all the resources that we can. And at the end of the day, it's gonna either be Russia getting to the point where they've exhausted all of their resources and they cannot sustain any future advancement or invasion.
Yes,
and
Frackle.
Ukraine gets their independence and their freedom back, or it's going to be some sort of a draw, and there's going to be the
That's
allocation
why
of the states,
The
which that's
countries
still
need
gonna
to do better
result in
about their refugee
loss of
systems,
lives.
like
And
just the infrastructure to accept
unfortunately,
refugees
I
and
don't
keep
see a
families
perfect
together.
outcome.
And
All
yeah,
I can see is giving Ukraine every single possibility and every single supply that we can to give them the best fighting chance at getting some sort of defense put against Russia and against Putin.
All right, fresh faces, go ahead and jump back in. Thank you, James.
Look, I know no justice like you. I agree with you that it would be like giving Russia what it wants to prove that they could like punch down and ultimately get what they wanted. But I don't know what the other option directly to peace would be, because Sokka's right. It would be Afghanistan to Electric Boogaloo for Russia. And that is going to be devastating, not only to the Russian people who are going to be there,
also the
and
Ukrainians.
the ultimate collapse of their country again from just all the resources they're gonna have to pile on, but it's going to devastate the Ukrainians.
Right.
And like as bad as an option it is, I think it's the only option because they overstepped. And unless they like, and granted, this is all based on the fact that they don't run out of gas like next week.
Right.
And when we talk about like the Iron Dome stuff, it's kind of funny that like the Iron Dome would have made so much of a difference, but like the Russians have no missiles. Like they've only
Yeah.
fired like close to 300 missiles, I think, in general. And like the Taliban fired more missiles than that out of Gaza anyway. Like, and they're building them
Yeah.
in like sheds. Like the Russian army, like their missile level is laughable. how
Oh,
much
that's
they have.
that's a good
It's unreal.
comparison though,
Hold
Boy
on,
Meets
to be
Mini.
fair though,
Yeah,
they haven't really wanted to do that yet. They've been they
Yeah.
sold their public on a peacekeeping mission, so they haven't really
Yeah, but they've
treated this
started
like
to ramp it up.
Chechnya yet. They're not like going.
But if you were
full,
going to
like,
fire all your
missile
missiles,
yet.
you would have done it to fire them and take out the actual target you were aiming for.
Like
on the
SAM
military
sites.
level, yeah,
Well,
you would
I
have
think that's
fired
what
those.
I think that's what they try to do anyway, because once again, all the
Right,
guided
and they didn't
missiles.
fire off a lot of missiles. I don't think that they had all that many missiles in the first.
Yeah. They don't have a lot of guided missiles. But with that being said, to sort of bring it back to where we started, I think that the sort of LDNR plus Crimea to Russia peace deal is impossible because once again, as we saw from Putin, I think his primary drive in this conversation is glory, and he already shipped it with nothing. This is a disastrous war in terms of geopolitics, in terms of economy, in terms of really anything a sane person might consider. So for him to essentially sacrifice the entire economy and like tens of thousands of troops and only end up back where he started is impossible. He will never go for that. So I
That
think
is true,
once again,
unfortunately.
there's really I guess we don't really know what the situation on the ground is like, so it could always be that Ukraine will collapse like within this week or something, maybe. So it's all still unfolding, so I won't make like too bold predictions, but I think sort of in the grander scheme of things, I think once again it's either regime change or Ukrainians get genocided or this war will just go on
Yeah.
forever.
All
Like
right,
I
I'm
agree
gonna-
with Sock in the fact that I think that occupation isn't on the cards. I think the insurgency war is I don't think is losable from a Ukrainian perspective, given the support they have with regards to new military equipment being shipped over from other Western nations, right? And
guerrilla
the
tactics.
amount of territory that Russia would have to hold to engage to be able to keep an occupation going. It's not on
Right.
the cards as far as I'm concerned.
You can't really
Yeah, but
totally
it's-
crush the guerrilla tactics, and they would essentially have to establish like a complete police state, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that.
But how many
So-
people are they gonna like take out in the meantime? That's like really the humanitarian cost of that is where like I'm like really worried about it.
Yeah, it's just going to be
If-
endless
if they-
war,
If
which
they're
sucks.
doing that, like if they're gonna try to like Iron Curtain Ukraine, like the refugee
The blue shirt guy
population,
is
we're probably looking at
Independent
close to
Thought. This is his
10% of the
panel.
Middle East trying to flee the country.
All right, so everyone, I'm going to go ahead and start transitioning us to
And the
closing
bottom.
statements. Before I'm going to just add my little 2 cents into here, moderator time. I would love to see that for those Ukrainians who do want to fight, that we send them the ability to fight. If they want to fight for their country, I think we should be supplying them some aid, including military aid if they want to use it. I think their only real path, because they don't really have the military capabilities to defeat Russia, but I think their best chance is to withstand as long as humanly possible and hope that this war becomes too economically too economically disadvantageous for the Russians to continue.
Yeah, the dude
Just-
with the Ukrainian
they
flag in the
started having
background
spent
is
too much
actually
money
born
on
and
this,
raised
they
in
might
Ukraine.
abandon it, but that's if the Ukrainians can hold out long enough for that to become a reality.
Alucard
But
Hex.
we'll see what Putin's really more or less willing to do as far as escalating this current conflict. With that being said, I want to go ahead and just start with everyone's closing statements. Go ahead and just say your final piece about this subject, and then tell everyone where they can find you at on social media and your various platforms. We're going to start with Fresh Faces New Ideas.
Hey,
Definitely
I
a
am,
great
Fresh
perspective.
Faces New Ideas. You can find me at twitch.tv/Fresh Faces New Ideas. You can find me at Twitter at Faces Ideas. I usually stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday-ish around 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. As for my final thoughts on this,
Hey,
this is
Alucard.
the second day of panels.
Let
that
me
I've
follow
been
you, my
on
boy.
for this, so I think I've been pretty clear about where I stand. This has been a disaster for the Russians. Their reasoning was nonsense. There's no clear end game for them. It's unfortunate that they're going to take a whole bunch of Ukrainians with them. We need to prepare for the humanitarian crisis of the refugees and the possible starvation that's going to come from us as
Word.
well. especially
that's
because of
cool.
how much
I'm gonna follow
grain
him.
that the Ukraine actually produces.
Thanks, Boy
And
Meets
we
Mini.
didn't really talk about that. And then on the home front, look,
VGG.
I think gathering the allies, they did a good job. I think the ability to transition this into a green economy, I think we failed on that. At least as far as the messaging right now, it's possible that in the next week or so that they'll actually figure out how to do a messaging that anyone with like 17 minutes of foresight could have figured out like 6 weeks ago. But like, we'll see.
All right. Thank you, Fresh Faces. Endless, I want you to go ahead and go next.
I'm Endless Cemetery. You can find me at endlesscemetery.com. That's ENDLESSCEMETERY. I know that word be whipping some people's asses sometimes. I personally lost the spelling bee behind it, so I'm not going to hate. I also do a podcast called the Bolsheviks Podcast. That's BALTSHEVIKS with my housemate Robbie. We talk about Baltimore stuff. We talk about commie stuff. We talk about Baltimore commie stuff. Check it out. We're told, but we're funny. Yeah, my take on the whole thing is that war bad. I'm always going to stand in solidarity with the working class and poor and marginalized people everywhere in the world, no matter where they are. Just one take that I've been spending a lot of time combating is also, I would like to iterate very heavily that Ukraine is not a Nazi state. A lot of the people that get propped up as Nazi leaders were people who were literally thrown in concentration camps. So I would really enjoy if the people on my side on the left would stop being so intellectually lazy in that regard. But yeah, with that said, war bad. Abolish money, abolish the government, and yeah, I'll leave you with that.
All right. Thank you so much. James Boyette, you are next on the list here.
Yep. So you guys can reach me at Boyette, the number 4 Congress for my Instagram, and Boyette FOR Congress .com for my website. And in terms of kind of how this entire situation kind of plays out, just kind of standing for the freedom of Ukraine and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to give them the best possible chance to get through this with as few loss of life as possible.
All right. Thank you so much. Next is No Justice.
Putin bad, green energy good, peace good, no fly zones bad, capitalism bad. Yeah, mine No Justice MTG. You can find me at that one, that handle there on literally every single social media networks. That is Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You can go check me out there if you want based anti-capitalist, Marxist, British politics, because there's not enough transgender Marxists on Twitch. And yeah, there's been an excellent panel. Thanks for everyone who's followed, from all the panelists as well, and people in other people's chats who followed. I really do appreciate all of that, and I appreciate the time put towards put this panel together. Independent thought. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Sock, you are next.
Cool. Thanks again for having me. Once again, I'm a retired streamer, so like you can find me in the chats of some drama stuff because it's enjoyable and you can just yell at people. But in regards to into this situation, like it's very sad. I love watching the resolve of the Ukrainian people, fighting for freedom and fighting for, their sovereignty. And like, it's really great to see. Obviously Putin is horrible. And I would like to see a diplomatic solution. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. Alucard, if you have friends and family back over there, I'm really pulling for them, and I hope that they continue to stay strong for their country, and really like keep kicking ass. All right, because you guys deserve like your own sovereignty, your own country, and all that. All right. But thanks again for having me. It was great seeing the old faces that I've met, and then the new people I met here. It was a great time. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And of course, we wanted our Ukrainian panelists to be the final thoughts. So Alucard, go ahead and tell us your final thoughts on this subject.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Sock. So, I mean, I guess it's as I said, Putin is a bitch. Give my boys all the aid, all the guns, all the money that you can push out right now. I think we're in desperate need of that, especially considering, Russians have been slipping based on everything we've seen. So I think this is a major opportunity. But yeah, I guess for now, from here, I can only hope for the best. In terms of what I will personally do going forward, I think I'll get involved in some more panels on this topic. Maybe if I can get some momentum going, maybe I'll do like a charity stream or something. That is something that I have been sort of doing, in real life with my friend groups and at my
mutual
university.
aid. Mutual
I really
aid.
want to get this going because, as Sok mentioned, I do still have a majority of my family and basically all of my friends over there. So it's a real mess. Yeah, so I hope I can get that figured out. On the broader scale of things, I mean, I probably won't be streaming that much in the near future, but I think I'll start to pick things up in the summer once I have my master's degree. So that will be a juicier time. And yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/alcardhex. And that is my Twitter handle also. I haven't been tweeting or streaming a whole lot, but I guess I'll start to pick things back up little by little. I appreciate everyone who's here for having this conversation. Thank you, Independent Thought, for letting me come on, and Slava Ukraini.
All right, solidarity to the Ukrainian people who are fighting for their fucking freedom right now. I want to go ahead and just end this topic by saying just a little piece on mine. I did an episode on this on my podcast just this week, talking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, all of my takes on how I felt about Putin's invasion of Ukraine and how really planned out this has all felt. Like this felt very orchestrated for
Low
a very
key.
long time.
It kind of did.
I'll let you hear my takes on my episode. If you want to follow any of these panelists and you are watching this on YouTube, I will have links in the episode descriptions for everyone's social media and for their Twitch channels. So go ahead and just drop in the episode description now. You'll see some links there. And if you are interested in seeing more panels like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more panel episodes in the future. Everyone who's on the panel today has an open invitation to come back for panels in the future. So if you would like to take that, just DM me, let me know. We'll set something up.
Thanks for having me.
Who watched today, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Good night,
Yeah.
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
All right, guys.
Recording stopped.
The recording has stopped.
I'm
It
still
did
alive
stop.
though. Awkward.
Well,
Better be
you are
safe.
live on Twitch, but the recording on here has stopped.
Weird. Yeah, I'm on I'm multi-stream. That's why I just throw my website out there. Because Discovery on Twitch is trash.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've noticed that also. I just stopped streaming on Twitch.
Mm.
All right.
I'm
That's-
still doing the Twitch, just the Twitch. I gotta figure out another
If
way.
you
to
want to
get
leave
it.
your streams up, you guys are fine. I just turned all my stuff off.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks.
thank you for everyone for coming on today. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Super
James,
based
I'm gonna
panel.
reach
It
out
was
to you
really
through
good.
Discord.
Yeah.
James, I'll reach out to you through Discord. I'd like to talk to you about your campaign and stuff.
Yeah, everyone,
I'd love to.
everyone
Cool.
intermingle, talk to each other. I mean, I like bringing people together. So this has been really cool for me. So I was glad that everyone kind of came through and did this. And, no bullshit. Like if you guys want to do another one in the future, just reach out to me. I'm trying to do a lot more of these in the upcoming months.
Hell
So
yeah. These are the
if you're
honestly
interested
the
in doing
Yeah.
another one of these, then just let me know.
yeah, and these are the type of panels I like because I don't really my emotional regulation is too poor for me to be arguing with people for people's entertainment. I like when everybody
Right.
kind of has more or less the same take and we just try to find the nuance. You know what I mean? That's my favorite kind of panel. So
Yeah, I'm not
Also-
really into the WWE stuff.
Yeah,
that's just
that's-
not
yeah.
my flavor. I've seen it before. I know it's entertaining, but I don't want to be on it.
yeah, right.
I wanna be
Yeah,
on it.
I
wanna be
can
on
I
it
can
so bad.
appreciate it, but I just don't want that to be my brand. I guess.
So I do like some contention. I just don't like having people like James Hake on the panel, or
I want to talk to
the people.
here's- I want to talk to him, and I want to talk to Rob one time, and then never again.
The rap god Rob Noah. At least he's now got his camera in 16:9 aspect ratio,
Ooh.
which is fucking 21st century shit for Rob Noah.
I did
No,
2
I talked
panels
to
with
Aircraft
CTV.
Sparky once, and that was enough for me.
I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
be
I did.
on
Oh,
with
my
him.
first team panel was with Aircraft Sparky.
Was that when you
it
did the
was
Jordan
non-pro-
Peterson impression?
That's the one where I did the Jordan Peterson.
That was
Yeah.
great. That was so good.
Well, the problem is that our universities are being infiltrated by post.
Oh my God.
Frankfurt neo-Marxist academics.
Honestly, I myself don't really mind the blood sports. I'm down to just scream. I guess. I mean, my neighbors maybe won't be too happy. But,
Did anyone
yeah.
watch the Did anyone watch the Hippy Dippy tag team, which was Chad Logic
Couldn't do
and
it.
Aristocracy?
Couldn't do it.
Oh my god,
I-
it was so funny. Just watching Chad call like ANCAPs pedophiles for an hour, perfect entertainment.
That's funny.
I watched that all day.
I
My-
was watching part of it.
my
I couldn't watch the Destiny CTV just
Oh
because
God, he
CTV
cried.
just yelled too much. It wasn't which is funny because like that's a really interesting topic that I think like if you had a conversation with people, I think you could really piss off some like conservatives with it. But like as
Well, hold
CTV is
on,
the
we got
wrong
some
one to have that
conservatives on
conversation.
the
Yeah, I was gonna say I did
Oh.
2 panels with CTV, and I stopped drinking, but yeah, that was definitely enough brain cell death to last me for forever.
Oh,
Wait,
speaking
but
of which, really quickly here, James, I appreciate your courage coming on here. We don't get too many people on the right side of the political spectrum who are brave enough to come into a space like this. So, hats off to you.
Yeah.
I want to ask
I
James,
appreciate
as
it.
you're obviously someone who's in like the Republican, is it the Republican you're running for? Sorry.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
I was just going
Yeah.
to ask, is that obviously I think there's clearly a kind of big internal divide within the Republican Party at the moment. I understand that most people who care about electoral politics from a pragmatic perspective, which I'm assuming you do based on what I've heard from the panel so far, like what do you feel is going to be the kind of point of inflection moving forward?
In which regard?
Yeah, I feel him.
In the direction that the party's going, or
Yeah. Because I understand you want, from what I've heard, you clearly want pragmatic solutions to state or countrywide problems and federal problems, right? Whereas obviously there's a lot of kind of cultural stuff that kind of brims over so the vast majority of the Republican discourse. And I want to humanize the people who I disagree with, and it's very difficult
Right.
at the moment when
Big
it's
clowns.
not. That's not what I hear from the actual that side of the debate.
and that's a big part of why I decided to run in this campaign against Matt Rosendale, which you guys have probably seen his vote against the support of Ukrainian people
Oh
here
yeah,
last week.
426 to 3.
That's
He was one of the
crazy.
3.
To be fair, he
Yeah,
was the
the-
least known out of the 3 clowns who did.
Not anymore.
Like this whole divide with not just the left, the right, but even within the Republican Party. For me personally, I'd much rather have the opportunity to talk to wide variety of people, whether I agree wholeheartedly or not, because in our political realm, in our world today, there's so many people locked into these unilateral ideas of what's right, what's wrong, but no willingness to listen or to have any sort of constructive conversation to find some sort of middle ground. Because as we very evidently found here today, there are some pretty fundamental pieces that we all agree with, and that's basic humanity. And as soon as the political realm started taking humanity out of the entire focus, that's where you started seeing all this crap coming into the mix of who they can get the most money from, which corporations are going to donate the most amount, and they just start focusing on how much money they can get over what's best for
Yeah,
the
that's
people they
weird. Boy, Miss
represent.
Money.
And that's where this kind of forum, this is my first time being on a podcast, so thank you for inviting me. But this is the kind of stuff
Yeah.
that I want to honestly start engaging in more to gain different outlooks, different perspectives, and actually listening.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to get you on here today, was because one of my issues with the Republican Party for the last few years has been the complete like lockstep nature of them. It was like the party under Trump, the end, and there was no division, there was no pushback, there was no nothing. I thought that people sometimes would criticize the left for being divided, but I feel like if you're having honest discussions, there's going to be some division. I think more or less when you have a party that's in complete lockstep, that almost feels very corrupt to me. Like everyone's just basically taking orders from the top. So I think, you know, more power
That's the whole
to you for
system,
actually
Wall Street.
wanting to, you know, push against Rosendale.
Well, and I mean, that, like I said, that goes for both sides. I mean, right now we've got the Democrat and Republican Party, the loudest voices are the most extreme. And the amount of people that are actually in the middle trying to figure out what to do and how to create a better tomorrow for the betterment of the people, those are the quietest voices. And that's where I'm hoping to try to make some sort of a difference in this entire crap show that is politics nowadays.
It's also cool just to have people who actually engage with the people to this level. You know what I mean? Like more politicians and prospective politicians doing like Twitch and panels and stuff like this, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think things reach a surreal nadir for me with regards to American like electoral politics. Was it the Virginia gubernatorial election that was recent?
With
that was in November.
Yeah.
But essentially, and no policies were ever discussed other than a moral panic over
Oh, yeah.
race theory or whatever.
Mhm.
Well, hold on.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is actually like a really an interesting point. So,
Yeah, I'm trying not to go super crazy
adamant that the Republicans were going to
because,
release the
yeah,
platform.
Freckles
And then
got
Rick
it.
Scott released the platform, and let me tell you,
I have
don't know
kid
if you
gloves
read it,
on.
but it is insane. It starts with the first. I swear to God, the first 3 words of it is the militant left controls the country. That's how it starts.
I wish.
And it-
Shit.
That's the and in it, one of the bullet points is calling for a tax raise on like 47% of Americans. It's like an insane number. Like it is a wild document that he released, and it is like one of the most perplexing things that I've ever seen. But it is the closest thing we've gotten to a like a policy platform in like half a decade. Like the closest we've gotten to like a Republican like actual healthcare platform was the Obamacare repeal.
You know, I actually did see that the Minority Leader McCarthy did have a platform back in December. I think I screenshot it. I'm going to see if I can't find it in my. Yep.
Oh,
Here
if
it
you
is.
send that to me, I'll look over it because the
Yep, actually, I have it right here from his official account. He wants to rein in the IRS, fund the police, secure the border, put American energy first, stop the runaway spending, and pass a parents' bill of rights. That's I'll drop that in the chat. That's all it says.
Okay,
that's all it
like,
says.
Because there's like the Scott one actually has points. Like each thing breaks down points into like what he wants to do. One of them is to end all federal programs within 5 years. All of them need to end within 5 years, and anything else that's worth it will be revoted on.
Yikes.
It is like an insanely ridiculous document that is so destructive.
You sure you said Rick Scott and not Ron Paul?
No, Rick Scott. The testicle from Florida, who who oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in history and beat an actual astronaut, because that entire state is out of its mind. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
I will put that picture in the chat. Well, not the chat. I put it in my Talk Politics portion of my Discord server.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting comparison you make there, Desmond, about
fuck Rick Scott with a pineapple.
Well,
that's
the
good.
Issue is that
thank you, boy meets many.
It's mostly the case within kind of the established political class on the right in both in the UK and in the US, have essentially kind of absorbed Randian objectivist dogma as being the official party line now. Anything outside of that is determined as being leftism or being like leftist mumbo jumbo. There's no kind of old school kind of conservative, like Burkean conservative viewpoint with regards to this on a kind of moral level.
I was gonna say
but
there was definitely some base conservatives in American history, like Blair Mountain and stuff. Like conservatives can be based. They've just been infected with this Fox News bullshit.
Yeah, but also the thing is though, the loudest voices on the left are fucking insane.
True.
All right. Like they are just as insane as the loudest voices on the right.
I
You
don't
know,
believe
That's how you get
Again,
attention. That's how you get
I'm not-
attention.
I
Right?
know,
Right.
I know, but
Two-
that's why
was gonna
the Republican Party is going to latch on to those messages,
Oh yeah.
right, and be like, "Hey, these people are fucking insane," and then paint everyone on the left the same way.
It's
Because-
so,
it-
it's
because
you
so
want to paint
intellectual.
Inshallah.
Let me
Yeah,
be very
it's-
clear. If we're gonna compare crazies, the crazies the left that you compare is AOC, and on the right it's Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Well,
You want to
hold
play
on,
that
no,
game?
Just quickly,
Oh,
one sec.
all
Just
right,
Sock, can you
all
just
right.
establish who you believe as being the loud left voice that's prominent, right? Just so
Should we
understand
turn the
what you mean
streams
by
back
straw
on?
manning
Like,
thing.
what have we?
Yeah,
what's
turn it back
going
on. I'm
here?
still going.
I'm still going. This is fun.
I'm talking about like the people on like fucking Twitter. All right, I'm not talking about
I don't care
necessarily.
about that.
Okay, there you
Hold
go.
on.
Yeah.
Hold on. That like I'm talking about the people on Twitter or the city mayors or the city DAs that have very lackluster policies in regards to you know, let's just say criminal justice or like have
Uh-oh.
bad records on you know, other things, or you know what I mean, like those are the voices that the right is currently propping up, right, and the policies that the right is currently propping up. Whereas like the solution needs to be somewhere in the middle between like the crazy far righties, like, and I'm not even talking about like again MTG, all right, like she's fucking batshit too, but I'm talking like I'm talking about like we need to find something that's in the middle of the voices that like aren't even necessarily voted in and elected, right? Like the voices on Twitter and what some people on the right are, because let's face it, the squad, which is like technically like the far left and on
They're center.
electoral.
Where-
Well,
yeah.
well, that's why I'm doing air
It's how we-
quotations.
Right.
you know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Labeled
All
them
right,
as the far
like-
left. They're
yeah.
the far left of the house.
Yes, and like the far right of the house, you know what I mean? Like they really
Yeah,
have
he's
no
got
power
centrist brain.
anyway. It's all the other bullshit in the middle, you know.
It's very
But
soft
but-
power, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
well, they
the-
have more
but-
power on the left than they do on the right, just because the right doesn't have
No,
the House, like the
Yeah.
majority.
Yeah.
but
The issue is though is that people like MTG doing things like Young America, also America First conferences, like literal like far right conferences, and there are like dumbass like Marxist Leninists on Twitter spouting
Hypocritical.
stupid bullshit.
Yeah.
But none of these people are none of the left crazies are members of Congress at the very least, right? That's the issue that I have, is that whereas what's being paid with I guess it's just a symptom of American political discourse based upon where the consensus is with regards to policy, because you've been, essentially a neoliberal, themed amusement park for the past kind of 40 years or so.
Yeah.
Anything like any kind of even like kind of milk toast third way politics, which is essentially what like the people who aren't the squad and like the progressive caucus advocate for, just kind of third way policies like building
Yo.
infrastructure. That's Blairism, right?
I've never heard of
That's,
them
you know,
being referred to as
that's-
milk toast before, but I'm definitely taking that now.
That's like
All right.
That's like
All right.
Gerhard Schroeder would be
But-
happy with
Hey,
what
yo,
things
listen.
like. Yeah.
Can I disagree real quick? I want to
Yeah.
attack. I want to attack lefties a little bit harder on this one, because I've come
Ooh.
out super disappointed out of this. Because sure, like in Congress and Senate, there hasn't really been any problems on the lefty end. But in terms of the discourse, like I would say this is, at least on the Ukraine issue, to talk about bringing the stream.
It's been
back on,
very poor.
it has been dreadful. We have people like Hassan, we have the Gravel Institute, we have the DSA, we have the Jacobin Mag, we have Richard Wolf,
the
we have
Kremlin
just an-
gremlin.
yes, we have just an endless
The Kremlin
array of
gremlin.
dipshits giving horrible takes, and these people have pretty enormous platforms. Like I don't know, Hassan has been pulling like 100,000 daily or something like that.
He's the biggest
So,
person on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but I
so-
mean, look,
He's
we got
Tucker Carlson. of
He,
Twitch.
at the very least, I could say this about Hassan. At least when he's wrong, he'll say he's wrong and retract, even if he sometimes gives wrong takes, which
So he's
is
Tucker Carlson of Twitch.
I think he's
low
done
key.
more good than he's done.
'Cause Tucker
bad.
wouldn't
yeah.
apologize.
But
I mean, I'm pretty sure they
It's-
both like check themselves.
Yeah, but
Like,
so-
It is a damning indictment on the leftist discourse on this issue that the voice of reason is fucking forsh.
Yeah, and I also was gonna
That's
say,
me.
like, it's very disappointing to me how often I have to be like, look, okay, Is there an anti-Semitism issue in Ukraine? Yes. Is there a nationalism issue in Ukraine? Yes. Is there an anti-blackness issue in Ukraine? Yes. But you could say that about literally any fucking country. Ukraine is not a Nazi state, period. Like, it gets really fucking frustrating, especially when we talk about Stepan Bandera, right? And it's like, yo, he was literally thrown in a concentration camp. He is not a fucking Nazi. Chill the fuck out. And then it's like, I don't even know how to talk to pro-Russian people. Because it's like, dog, if you don't understand that,
Dude, that debate was wild. I was laughing at work.
Infrared
the whole
I
time.
couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. As soon as I saw the people that were on it, I was like,
I didn't do it.
When he was getting paused, I was laughing for like 45 minutes watching that, and I like it just started a job, and I didn't have headphones while I was listening to that. And he just like every other. Look, I have to say, like, before I started streaming, I had a lot higher like views of certain people. And then as soon as I started looking into them, it dropped. Like Ben Shapiro is like the #1 person who I had a higher view of before I started listening to the things he said. And then I knew Jackson and Infrared have like a big following. And then every time I've heard them speak, it's been like,
it's pure memes every time. It's pure memes.
Infrared, but Jackson Hinkle, like,
I want to interject really quickly here and just say that the stream is like officially, like the conversation is like officially over. So if you need to leave for any reason, you can.
I'm having fun.
But if everyone's chilling, then
this is super fucking fun. I'm
yeah,
really
but just
enjoying
drop out
this.
whenever you like need to. If someone needs to go.
The issue with Infrared and Jackson Hinkle is that they're doing two different things. Whereas Infrared is a character, Haz is just playing. He's essentially playing off of triggering the leftists, right? His entire platform is just tweeting out dumb shit, saying dumb shit, and then using that as being an agent provocateur to build his platform. Whereas Jackson Hinkle is not. Jackson Hinkle is a grifter. He is a grifter.
He's a Dorite.
Exactly. He's doing what Jimmy Thor's doing. Like Jackson Hinkle in October 2020 was putting out pro-Biden TikToks, right?
Oh,
he's
Jesus
not,
Christ.
Like the idea that he's just somehow become a Marxist-Leninist overnight, I don't buy it 1 second. But he is leeching off of the all parties are bad, just as bad as each other, like viewpoint online, and then using that to drive conservatives to his platform from his just general quote-unquote anti-establishment viewpoints. Not that being pro-Russia is anti-establishment or anything. So he's a proper agent provocateur trying to be able to cultivate some kind of fan base of people through grifting.
Right.
Whereas Haz is just a fucking meme character.
Yeah. But we have crazies like that though on the right as well though. Like I know like it's very easy to point out like the Marxist Leninists that are like, oh my gosh, like it is like they are trying to denazify Ukraine, and but on the right we have oh this would have never happened under Trump. We're so weak. That's the only reason.
Marjorie Taylor meme.
And I'm just like, motherfuckers, like, do you know do you remember the platform that Trump ran on in 2016 that was like very anti-war and very pacifist, isolationist, whatever?
And didn't exist in 2020.
Yeah,
right.
and then now we're like, oh, hey, what war? We would have been so strong. We would be defending them. Oh, like Biden's weak, and I'm like, you guys are full of shit. I'm like, no, that's not what we wanted.
It's the ultra nationalist vibes. It's they fuck with Russia for the same reason. Just look at the Grapers. Like they think that Russia is going to become this like Christian white male utopia, and they fuck with it. You know what I mean? They love it.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit of nuance into this because I feel as though this is something that you do see on the left and the right, which is like when a president is in power, the opposition party from outside does feel the need to throw fucking stones no matter what the case is. And they absolutely do not care about being intellectually consistent or honest whatsoever. I mean, Trump will say anything to make Biden look bad.
It's spectator sport politics,
regardless of what his positions are. Like he's like, if I can have a chance to prop myself up and drop down my opponent, I'm taking it. End of story. I see Democrats doing the same thing. It's just gross. There's too much. I'm glad that there's enough people who see through that bullshit because we need more people to see through it.
I just don't fuck with Wall Street. That's why I don't fuck with either party.
Well, that's why I've been attacking mainly my side about this whole thing. Like I don't care about what far lefties are doing. All right, like I know they're batshit, but you know what? Like I want to get quote unquote my side under control. And like try to tell them that hey, criticizing Biden right now, it's just not it. You
Yeah.
know, and I think like, you know, we definitely do need to do more like self-policing of our sides, you know, of our,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
quote unquote.
I've
But,
done like 3 streams now addressing these denazification takes because the shit is just so brain dead, but I keep seeing it and it's painful.
I actually haven't seen it at all, so I'm surprised that it's come across you
Oh.
that many times. I thought everyone kind of just like wrote that off as being dumb and moved along, but
No, you gotta find the right.
You
sources
gotta,
for it.
yeah, you gotta.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to, but I trust it.
I mean, all right,
I trust
so
that it's been happening.
all you need to watch, because it's like great entertainment and whatnot, is Destiny and Dylan Burns versus Jackson Hinkle and Haas.
Dude,
Yeah.
Oh, they got.
I
barely
refuse to,
dismantled.
but
It's
I'm sure,
hilarious.
yeah.
dude, it's
Dude, the
so
memes
funny.
are so
It's
good.
so funny, dude. Destiny little the Haas stuff was.
I just thought it was funny as shit when I guess they were at DebateCon or something. Haas was trying to fight Dylan, and
Dude,
I'm
I
like,
saw that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Like, cause like, I know he's a character, but like at some point, if he's like, yeah, I don't have any sources for anything. I was like,
but
"You at least
also,
pretend to like care about
yeah,
this shit."
but also just Dylan's from round the way. He's from around the same area I'm from, and he would fuck you up. He would fuck Haas up. I'm sorry. It's just I know where he's from. He's got hands.
Funnier thing was like Has realizing he's shorter than Destiny, and then
Was he
like
actually
obviously-
shorter?
Yes, he's
Yeah, he
like
is,
he's like
just
half
slightly.
an
Like,
inch
all sh-
shorter.
No, but
How
let's be
tall
real.
are they? They're like 5'4", right?
Something like that. But all short men are kings. Let's put that.
That's why I'm trying to be cool, Frackle, because I know they're low key already on the pipeline towards leftism, so I'm not going as hard and as crazy as I really want to.
So funny.
Even this James Boyette guy, he's running for
Literally right
Congress.
into that,
I'm
too.
sure
I actually don't
through
Yeah,
doing
it
this
is.
stuff
As
and
is.
exposure to people like me
infrared.
and
God,
no
then
justice.
please don't watch this debate with like no other reference. It is just too funny.
I didn't
Yeah, I've
realize.
actually
What you wanna
stayed
do-
out of the like hierarchy of Twitch for the most part. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure who
me
some
too.
of these like
Also,
names are who you're throwing around. I mean, I know
Also-
who Destiny is, and I know who Dylan is, obviously, but the other two
With-
names
with
you
that
mentioned, I don't know
debate-
who they are.
Without to make sure you watch it on the Twitch VOD from Dylan's end because
Yeah, yeah,
it's
or his
not
YouTube,
just the
he did-
debate.
He did.
You
the
wanna
YouTube
watch-
one.
You want to watch the whole thing where after the official debate finishes, Infrared just like has a mental breakdown and just starts insulting Destiny like an insecure man baby for like a literal hour. It's so funny. It is
Yeah, because they
unreal
keep
how funny
muting
it
him.
was.
They keep muting him, so like they
But
try
this
to
was
talk.
after it. This was
They-
afterwards. It's literally
I
there's
couldn't
James,
imagine
Curtis, and
actually
Dylan
arguing
just
this
sitting there like
conversation from a
this.
pro-Russia standpoint. I couldn't. I
Oh,
couldn't even
it's
imagine
because
how you would try to do that.
for two things.
Because-
So you have to stay in Russia because Russia is the USSR, and if you're a true communist, you always got to unquestionably support things that you think are communist, even when they demonstrably aren't. But also, apparently, the
Say,
Discord link
USSR
in
wasn't
your
even communist.
low key it was not, but also your Discord link in your link tree doesn't work. I'm being told.
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
I guess I'll fix that.
I think it's less. I think it's less pro USSR. I think it's more
Exactly,
just literally
Mistopheles.
anything that opposes American hegemony.
Well, that
is
too.
something that they
America
very much-
bad and anything anti-America automatically good. There is
Yeah.
that level of head assness.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unfortunate because I think based on like some of the I guess more calm debates of Haas that I've seen, his sort of like logic and philosophy is actually like decently strong. It's really unfortunate that he just decided to be like an absolute contrarian on this issue and just
It's low
destroy
key
himself.
like COINTELPRO bullshit because it's like on the left, especially like me as a black anarchist, like I spend so much time having to talk to people like in the center and towards the right and convince them that like, dog, literally all we want is to just like not get killed and party. That's literally all we want. And like I don't know where like all the rest of the shit like just gets completely off the rails, but like fam, we literally just want to not get killed by police and be able to just like party and live. That's all.
The thing is, like the black, like anti-capitalism is the black struggle at the end of the day, right? The black emancipation is like anti-capitalism required for that. It's a bunch of fucking like ML fucking white boy larpers trying to derail things with stupid shit like
Right.
standing Russia. It gets in the way of the actual material gains that we need to make to emancipate, the oppressed minorities in across the world, right?
Right.
No, but my favorite part about that whole debate was like Destiny's all his nicknames for Haas. Like so like the Kremlin Gremlin was one. One was like the Leningrad
The
leprechaun.
Vladimir Virgin.
Yeah, Vladimir, dude, he was pulling out some fucking bangers. Like I know you don't want to watch it, but like
it's
like
with a
just
laugh.
subject yourself to it.
Exactly.
Like, if you need,
Cats,
like,
cats,
a
cats.
good like comedy release, it is fucking gold. All right, just to let you know, there is 1 or 2 arslers thrown in there.
Oof.
All right. Yeah,
just
so
watch it through-
It's
if
wild
you're
how
looking-
that came back. I thought we all decided it was no good, and it in the last like year or so, it just kind of came back with a vengeance. It feels like.
Well, see, I personally don't have a problem with it, but I just let you guys know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't. So I cringe when I hear it, but I'm not gonna like freak the fuck out when somebody says it to me. But that word is not in my vocabulary and hasn't been for a long
It
time.
flips in and off for me because I've had like relationships with family members who are autistic, and it was like something I used to say a lot more, and they would get mad at me. And it sometimes it comes out, but it's
I feel it.
So, funny story.
Even further than that, I just hear people use autistic as a slur nowadays.
Yeah, that's wild
Someone
as
is-
shit
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well,
And
funny
we got-
story.
We got
But,
Chud Logic breaking new ground as well every day.
yeah.
My first interaction with Chud Logic was not great. I think I told Chud Logic to suck my dick from the back. I think was the
Dude, I
first
love
time.
Nice.
Chud. I don't follow anything he I don't like watch his videos. I just follow his tweets and like the stuff. I don't know if anything he said with the Dr. K stuff was accurate or not. Like I just know that he's the guy who just says racism all the time. And that's like the extent of his because he streams around the same time I used to, so I never really like watched what he did.
So
But he's
like
just funny stuff.
That's
like,
funny.
a funny story I have was like when like my first panel I ever did like on a hippy dippy recruitment, I ended up like criticizing some Trump supporters.
Thank you,
right?
antithesis.
And like
Ooh,
like because they were doing some dumb shit. Okay, like they deserved it. All right. But I totally like blanked out because like I was just like raging at him and I totally threw out the R slur, and then afterwards I totally just got like so silent, right? Because I'm like yep shouldn't have said that one, and like I didn't really speak much the rest of the panel because I'm like shit. But it's like it was so warranted because they were acting like they were doing some dumb shit, but like I don't really use it much, but it was just funny. Like in that scenario, like it totally just like came out.
I feel it.
It's like I don't know if you saw this clip. There was a clip a couple weeks ago of a candidate, I want to say in like Texas, who was talking at like some.
Are you talking about
rally,
Chud Logic
talking about
antithesis?
trans kids, and basically what she said was, I don't like all these rules because I can't get the other kids to bully trans kids. And as she said it, she literally pauses for like 15 seconds, and she's like, "Oh wait, I didn't mean that." And then she like tried to flip.
Oh
away,
yeah, I
it's,
called
like,
him a
one of those
grifter.
things where you say
He
something
invited
that's,
me in the
like,
Discord
so
chat, and I
awful
called him
that
a
it's
grifter to
like-
his face.
It
Not
was,
to his
it was
face, but yeah.
really like I can't get the other kids to make fun of these kids. Like word for word was what she said.
I mean, you say that like that's not been the entirety of the anti-trans ideology from.
Oh
from
no,
the
I
That's-
love
get-go,
like
right?
that's
yeah.
wild.
the trans people, like the trans argument. Just listening to a lot of it and not being like just learning about and talking to like other people about it is made me so much like a better debater from it. Like, and it's such a ridiculous argument that they use. Like even in Florida, like all their arguments, like the more you look into it, the more absurd their arguments get. Like up until when did that swimmer get recognized? Like 6 months ago, there was not a person they could name,
Right.
like a single like athlete. And,
Yeah, it took all of
What do you
this
mean?
to
There's- no,
finally
you
get
had
right
Fallon
toys to
Fox.
care about women.
Decades. It
No,
was
you-
like
you
this is
found
why I
Fox
can't.
in
This is
the-
why I don't debate because like there's just certain shit that's like not up for debate for me. Like trans people literally are just trying to be like we want to exist and not be assailed, and people are like but, and then that's why I just get to like yo where's your IP address, yo, drop the location. I can't deal.
So I updated my Discord link for those who are interested. I think I did anyway. We'll see. Boomer level stuff over here. Can't seem to figure out how to work technology.
Oh, trust me, I'm right there with you.
I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone saw this today, but like I think Florida's passed their Don't Say Gay bill, but the press secretary for Ron DeSantis today was tweeting out how about the bill is actually to stop teachers from grooming 4-year-olds.
Oh my god, dude, because that's such a huge problem on the left, right?
because
I'm actually really interested to see how this is going to play out this year. This feels like the number one issue heading into the general election when it comes to, I think for
Yeah,
all of
trans
these, like, House and
misogyny.
Senate
should
It's
be
races.
fucking
they're
bullshit.
like cartoonishly villainous.
Just the
You were
just
education
talking about
system,
that on your
critical race
stream.
theory.
It's another
It,
moral.
it feels like
panic.
it's just gonna be like a giant umbrella for like parents' rights, school choice,
Yep.
all of this stuff.
Economy is going to be king in 2022.
Yeah.
But they're going to run on like a bunch of
well,
other stuff.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
that might be like
no.
the overarching. I'm talking about what's going to be the like the talking points though.
Yeah, well, that's why I almost agree with the Republican strategy to like not run on a fucking platform.
Right.
They don't need to.
No, because the economy is dog shit right now, right? So it's like unless the economy turns around, I don't see a way that Democrats like survive this year.
I don't know how accurate that is either, though, with the economy being dog shit. The numbers tell different stories. I think really the inflation is the biggest issue, and the gas thing.
I mean, it's a big issue.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, like that's what I'm. So, all right, when people think of the economy, they think of how much they're paying, right? Like for gas and how much inflation is, right? That jobs numbers, all right. Well, the unemployed people would care about that. The people who are employed don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like it's just like people care about how much money is in their pocket. All right. At the end of the day, as like cynical as that is, like social issues and all, like people don't like. I feel like normal people don't really give too many fucks about it, right? They want
Depends
money.
on what pocket of the country you're in, but yeah.
Yeah, but like in general, the majority, like the general population, wants money in their pocket, right? Like the like not politically activated, not people like us. You know what I mean? Like they want money in their pocket.
Yeah,
So
only one
if
party
they're
raises
spending more
wages.
money, well, they're going to blame the president, even if it's not necessarily his fault.
Right.
And then they're going to vote the other way. You know, so that's what I mean. Unless they quickly turn this around, I don't see a way that Democrats get out of 2022.
Let me
think you're
hijack
right,
this
Sock. I think-
conversation really quickly for a second, if you guys don't mind. I want to say I think that it very as much culture based about how people care about these conversations. I want to actually bring this conversation to James really quickly before you get out of here. I think in Montana, towns like Missoula and Bozeman might feel differently about issues than Great Falls and Billings. If you were to actually defeat Rosendale and be the Republican nominee, like what would you be running on for a platform going into the general election?
So basically the fundamental rights. I mean, the biggest taboo kind of going against me right now is I do believe that we do need to do more when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare. And for my personal job right now, it's in the healthcare realm.
Based.
Unfortunately, it's with a med device company that I'm seeing firsthand kind of what's going on there. And
See, this is why I didn't go crazy on him, because the contradictions already exist. The contradictions, you know what I'm saying? You see them, and you just can't make the same mistakes over and over
especially
again.
when it comes to healthcare, insurance, you name it. If you guys have a chance to take a look at one of my, or a couple of my posts that I put up on my Instagram, it'll kind of break this down a little bit. But in the 2020 election, 2/3 of the House and Senate took paychecks or donations from Big Pharma. 2,400 state lawmakers across the country. Biden received $8.7 million.
Thank you,
in
Hardwood and Sock.
Big Pharma contributions for his campaign. Trump received $2.7 million. And the fact of the matter is, the way it's set up right now is lawmakers from the House, Senate, you name
Thank
it,
you, Alucard.
are deliberately passing and pushing policies
Thanks, Hardwood and Sock.
that does nothing to address the cost of pharmaceuticals, supplies for hospitals, or medical devices. And those patients get passed on to the patient through insurance companies, because there is no true regulation when it comes to putting a cap on the price of pharmaceuticals, supplies, or devices. Companies
Based.
can literally get a
Hey, shout out to
prescription
Alucard
or
Hex. Make sure you follow him if you aren't already.
freaking device that they can develop for $5, upcharge at 500%, and that's completely acceptable. There's no cap. And then that in turn goes to the insurance company. Insurance companies get to pick and choose who they cover, who they don't, who is eligible for coverage with pre-existing condition and who's not. And it's all about money from pharmaceutical companies, from med device companies, and then insurance companies who are taking advantage of the patient having to pay more to even have any sort of health. So the biggest thing that I'd be pushing is putting a cap on just how much these companies can mark their prices.
It's not Medicare for all,
Stop
but
making
it's
it
better
about
than
profit and
your average
make it more
Republican.
about
I'll say that.
the patient, which is the overall end goal. Ban big pharma and big tech from any financial contributions to any elected politician. Cut them out of the entire government sphere altogether.
Based.
Not mad about
Stop this manipulation. Because at the end of the day, these large corporations, whether it's big pharma, big tech, or whoever else, their ability to financially influence agenda items that are being pushed is directly affecting people on an every single day basis. And especially in the healthcare realm, where you can literally get patients that get shit health insurance coverage. And take Rosendale, the guy I'm running against.
Yeah, I can
For
imagine
his platform,
antithesis,
he's
and you
been
literally
bragging
need
about
that to
how
live. So it's crazy that it costs hella
dedicated he
money to
is
do that.
to better healthcare.
That guy's a
When
clown.
his track record has shown time and time again that he is sided with insurance companies to choose to not cover patients with pre-existing conditions, increase premiums that patients have to pay for less coverage. That in no way is even right or humane. And even in this campaign of what I'm running against is just put a post up, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, that he's supposed to be a representative for Montana. His entire donor base of who's contributed to his campaign, only 41.3% of his donors are coming from within the state. Of that 41.3% that are actual Montana donors, they account for 18% of his entire campaign funding.
Absolutely, Frackle.
Put that in perspective, he's raised 1.6 million. Less than 300,000 is being donated from within the state. And of the 1.3 million that he's getting from outside of the state, there's direct lines of correlation with casinos down in Las Vegas,
Sheesh.
shell companies over in New York, and of these companies, and you can look it up on the FEC website, multiple run-ins of illegal.
Yeah, hell yeah, Hardwood Neck. I'd be super into that.
Purposely using
Hardwood
shell
Neck, hardwood and
corporations
sock.
and separate companies to donate more to individual candidates. And on top of that,
Yeah, the
3
cap
different
antithesis. I'm with
York
you. That shit was kind of
New York
crazy.
out of
Like,
everyone throughout the U.S.
needs to be Medicare for all, or
are
at least a
directly
public
affiliated
option.
with known money laundering schemes where they've been investigated by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies all the way up to 2021. And he's already got ongoing lawsuits of working with the NRA to illegally use campaign funds for them to steamroll the previous scandal in the last or 2 election cycles ago, when he got his ass whooped by the Democrat he was running against.
John Testa,
Just
yeah.
because he
Yeah,
just wanted
it's
to
a-
run his smear campaign.
It's kind of funny for those who aren't familiar with, Montana politics, which is basically no one outside of Montana or everyone outside of Montana, really.
I definitely have no idea.
Yeah.
So Trump won Montana by about like 18 or 19 points in 2020 at the same time that Rosendale won by, I think, 4 or 5. So even like Republicans in this state are kind of a little like washy about him. So he's not exactly the most liked individual within the state. And he lost his 2018 bid in the Senate race to a Democrat. So if you, as a Republican, are losing to a Democrat in a statewide race in Montana, you're not that great, bud. You just not that good of a politician.
So can I
I'm
kinda
just
ask,
glad to see. Oh, go
like,
for it. Sorry.
the policy prescriptions? Like, I agree that you've targeted the obvious problems. Like, is there policies that are already out there? Like would you go as far as to like endorse like Medicare for all, or even
Public
voting rights,
option.
some of these, or the like a public option? Like, where would you do that? And I have a
I
question
think
for
he'd be more into a
people who are
public
going
option
to
than Medicare
endorse
for
something
all,
like a Medicare for
personally.
all. I think a way, and this is something I actually.
The only reason I didn't ask him this is
because I
because
haven't
this
won
is
in
the
my
kind
lifetime,
of
and
question
that
that
might
will
be a little
torpedo a
bit.
campaign, Loki. But I'm glad somebody else is
Wouldn't
asking
you
it.
push it as something like a freedom thing? Like, I think that's the way to push it as a messaging thing. And I'd be curious, like, if you like agreed with like as a Medicare for all thing, but you broached it similar to the way Trump did, where it's like, hey, look, this is about your work freedom, your lively freedom. If that would resonate better with your voters than saying it's Medicare for all and now the communists are coming to take over the country like Venezuela.
I mean, the issue, just one sec before I move, is the issue with Medicare for all is its prescription that you remove all insurance. And obviously, I'm from the UK. We have universal healthcare. We still have private insurance that you can take, but no one gets it because the NHS is.
Yeah, that's why I threw the
Right,
public
no, that's
option
what
out there.
Like, when I say Medicare for all, I do mean like more of a UK version.
Even the proposed Medicare for all bill that Bernie put through, it still left room for private supplemental insurance.
Yeah, for sure.
So it wasn't like a
there's-
one size fits all thing. But yeah, go ahead, James.
Go ahead.
So for the Medicare for all, just knowing kind of the ins and outs of how Medicare actually works with the costs directly associated with the patients, that probably wouldn't be something that I'd be pushing for. It'd be more something along the lines of trying to implement some sort of structure insurance wide where insurance companies
See, I knew it.
have to mandate
I knew it.
the coverage of all medically necessary procedures and
Whoops, I wasn't
not
muted.
upcharging every single thing. Make sure that all these procedures are covered. If someone wants to have some add-on like updating their boob jobs every 6 months or whatever it is, then sure, they can pay a little bit more for a little bit better insurance. But making insurance accessible for anyone, covering the procedures that are medically necessary that are often declined because of their tier of insurance, and making sure that the premiums aren't going to be astronomical where the patient's left broke after they get a procedure. That would be my
Based.
approach.
I was going to say, though, do you not think that this is just a band-aid plastered over the necessary problems with a profit-driven healthcare system, which would be much easier fixed by, at the very least, a kind of public option-style healthcare?
Okay, she said what I was going to say.
I'll say this really quickly, though. I mean, like, at the very least, at least you're not like a status quo like Republican who are like, oh yeah, the healthcare system's fine. You know, like let's just leave it
that's
as
way better.
is.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
like
I cannot even stomach that approach. Like with the current, especially with medical bankruptcies being what
Yeah,
they
fuck
are right now,
Cobra.
the whole like, oh, we got to just leave it as it is. Like get the government out of every aspect of regulating the healthcare industry. It's like, no, like the industry is fucked up as it currently is. It needs a change. It needs a massive
It
change, in my
needs
opinion.
regulation.
Well, that kind of goes for if we're looking at the government as a whole. So there's 467 federal agencies. And of those federal agencies, roughly 30% are duplicates of, like, say, the Department of Health and Human Services has double-digit duplicate agencies, which is sucking up a lot of taxpayer money. And when we're talking Medicare and Medicaid, in 2021, only roughly 65% of their entire budget was actually used, and the remaining portion just went unspent. And they're in turn turning around and asking for a 4% budgetary increase in 2022. And the big kind of broad spectrum approach on this to not only address the taxes and the cost to
Thank you, broad discretion.
everyday people is need to actually take a solid look at the federal agencies in place and get rid of programs that are doing nothing and other than just making people, other agencies' lives easier because they don't have to work as hard, and taking the money that's being unspent or taking the money back from these agencies that are not providing any sort of a benefit and use that money to pay down some of the debts that the US has and stop treating our Federal Reserve like an unlimited credit card and put that money where it actually matters, which is addressing the health of the entire United States, actually doing something to solve this homeless issue that's just gone a band-aid in a couple tents.
We know what the real solution to that is,
sad
but
part about it
I'm gonna let
is
him cook.
Was doing a little bit of number crunching on the amount of money that has been spent for the quote unquote homeless problem over the last few years. And if that money was actually distributed to actually solving the homeless crisis instead of just giving people paychecks to go talk about homelessness, we would have been able to build either houses or apartment units for every single homeless person in the entire United States, and also build whatever you want to call it, whether it's education systems, healthcare assistance, job training, you name it, to be able to help these people get back on their feet and get back into the workforce, get back into regular day-to-day life, instead of just giving them the bare necessities to just stay alive under
Does
a tent.
anyone-
Are you saying
Does anyone know
Social-
what country did the whole housing first policy where it actually
Finland.
was it Finland?
they're the only country in Europe where the homeless population is declining. The thing is, I know a lot about the homeless issue. My friend called Summer is the homeless response leader in Austin, Texas.
Yep, Mistopheles.
And essentially, from all of the data that we have, the only solution to homelessness is social housing, essentially. And I know James is absolutely correct in that all of this money that gets wasted in policing homeless communities, running homeless shelters, engaging
Yep.
in outreach programs,
whole
is
fucking
wasted
racket.
money. It's wasted money that just needs to get spent on social housing building programs. The issue is that you have to sign off on the incredibly large upfront investment to build the houses in the first place, which you can't sign off of, especially when you need to get votes on like a state level to build those projects. That's the issue.
You might not even
Whereas-
need to.
But
You might not even
can.
need that money up front. I mean, I just saw this stat. Just not what was it, like maybe a day or two ago that the Trump administration just said 3 years ago that there were like 500,000 people that were homeless in America. At the same time, there were 17 million vacant homes. I mean,
Baltimore
So
definitely
there
has
are
that problem
That is
here.
insane.
Homeless in California.
Baltimore. So we have this was actually a major issue. So in DC, the state, well, whatever the government body is, because they're not really a state, they could actually raise taxes on you if you hold vacant properties, right? Until you either fill it or sell it. But here in Baltimore, the state can't do that. So, or the city government can't do that. So, like, people will literally just hold bandos until the area gets gentrified and they can flip it. So, there's like, just off the top of my head, I can think of 3 different areas that I walk past on a regular basis that have straight up tent cities. Meanwhile, there's entire sections of the city with whole blocks that are just bandos, like with trees growing on them and everything.
You know, you would think a true
So-
capitalist society would recognize that their workforce could actually maybe work if they had, you know, like some stability in housing. Like,
Nope.
I just, it's such a
Well,
such
yeah,
a
we have
clown
we-
show like logic
we have
base
capital
to leave
corporate
these people
corporate towns.
homeless.
If you do a
That's the
corporate
issue.
town, then
Things
they have
out-
to.
Yeah.
This is why Adam Smith was anti-landlord. Like,
Right.
So I'll put this part in perspective for you guys. So just last year, there was roughly $2 trillion in wasted / unspent money that literally was going untouched. And that's not counting the amount of wasted money on these duplicate agencies. And literally, if we even took a fraction of that, like say 1 trillion or something like that.
Oh, DC is crazy gentrified. Yeah, it's nuts how
So,
gentrified
Take
DC
1
is.
trillion
Chocolate City.
divided by say 300,000. How like 300,000 is above the national average for a cost of a house. Take a guess without doing math on how many homes that would equate to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the math is.
3.3 million.
I was gonna
Yeah,
I was
the
gonna say a
houses-
metric fuck ton, but that seems
fucking
more
math
accurate.
is there. I mean, honestly, they're building fucking insulated sheds down the road from where I live at in Missoula. You can buy these bitches for $1,000. You can put every homeless person in the country in one of those things for $500 million total. Fucking crisis is over tomorrow.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is they've literally turned homelessness into a profit stream.
And a
And
political.
Oh,
talking
yeah.
They're
point.
not willing to accept the fact that instead of just trying to find ways to line our own pockets, that we need to actually do something to solve the homeless crisis, to put an end to this inhumanity and actually do something about it.
thing is, we have a big issue with homelessness in the UK, and this was caused by the fact that we essentially spent in the post-war years up until Margaret Thatcher, we spent all of that time building, hundreds of thousands of council houses every year. Right, we had a huge house building project in the post-war years, which are all social housing, all owned by the state, which got sold off by the Thatcher government to just generate funds to be able to make the economy look like it was doing well. Has then come home to roosters. These essentially, they were good houses, but not like perfect ones. So they've all been sold off by the original people who bought them off the government into the hands of private landlords who now have essentially have a vice grip on the whole housing system. Neither the left wing nor the right wing governments in the last 30 years have built more than 100 council houses, or more than 1,000 council houses in any year, which is 100 times less than we should be building. Which is essentially this removal of the social housing sector has caused the homelessness crisis. So we've essentially done this in reverse.
Margaret
always like
Thatcher
when
got
New
me one of my
Justice comes on
favorite
these-
gender neutral bathrooms.
No, Just I always like when you come on the panels because I always learn more about the UK and their fucked up history, and it just makes me feel a little bit better. I guess that we're not the only idiots on the planet.
Right.
At least we're idiots with universal healthcare. Hey,
No.
Yeah.
You don't have to flex like that. Come on now.
Yeah.
I paid good
All right,
money for
well,
these teeth.
I think I gotta go. But
All
yeah,
right,
once
Alucard.
again,
it's great
thank
to
you.
meet you.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for the conversation. I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
meeting
Thank you,
you.
Alucard.
I did want dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, James, I'll reach out to you because I have other questions.
Yeah. If you
now I
guys
know
want
the
to
ballot
talk
meeting
about
might not be you.
yeah, if you guys want to talk about Ukraine stuff, I
Absolutely.
guess just hit me up. I'd be down to come on anytime. All right. Have a good night,
All
folks.
right, thank
Have a
you.
good night, man.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
See you, man.
Thank you.
And then there were 5.
The thing is,
Dude, listen to that. His response is
UK's
really good.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was low
Makes me
key.
very confused about his Ballotpedia thing because there's one thing in it where it's like he wants to like arrest people for spreading lies on social media is kind of how I read it, and I was confused like listening to what he said. It didn't sound like a thing that he was some of his election stuff that he had on Ballotpedia, which was about the only resource I could find on him.
Wait, you bring this up now? He was just here.
I know I wanted to bring it up, but he was actually having a good point.
Yeah.
I'm
Fresh
gonna
Face is
listen.
running
I need
away.
to have something to have a
You run
conversation
away.
with him in the future.
Right. Yeah.
running away
I
from
didn't want to bring up the I tried not to push the Medicare for all thing. I wanted like public option was gonna be the farthest left I was gonna go because I know that type
Yeah.
of shit is shit that will torpedo a campaign. So props to
Well,
you
that's
guys
why
for
I offered,
asking.
like the way to argue it better. I think the argument
Right.
is freedom is the right way to do it. Because
Right,
you say
right.
the word freedom and a conservative brain turns off, and then they go, "I'm going to do that."
Exactly.
Because as far as I'm aware, the public option would be a paid government-provided healthcare insurance plan, right, rather than free healthcare. Is that what?
Yeah,
Am I correct in
I
more
think
or
it's just
less.
adding Medicaid into the Obamacare exchange. I think
Right.
that's basically what it was.
So at least if you have a public option, like if you have a public healthcare program that people can pay into if they want, you would then allow some level of market control where you essentially set the market rate by undercutting the insurance providers, which is fine. Obviously, I would prefer a universal healthcare system, but that seems, if someone is dead set on there being a market-based solution to these issues, having a government-provided competitor in the market would be a way of winning over some voters, I guess.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. It's a half measure, but it's better than having people, you know, you have to pay to afford teeth. You know what I mean? I pay good money for my teeth.
Dude, I had to pay for teeth like recently. It is an arm and a leg and my teeth.
I can
Need those.
even. You guys do not want to get me on this rant. There is no logical reason whatsoever why dental is not covered in medical insurance.
Oh yeah,
So
that
this
shit's
is
crazy.
prevention.
I
Right.
seriously cannot even stomach how dumb that really is. Like
I mean,
even
granted-
dentists don't like it. I've actually talked
Right.
to dentists about this. They were like, we would actually have more business if fucking like dental like procedures were underneath health.
I pay
insurance.
crazy amounts
mean,
for my
granted,
insurance, so I
like,
don't
the
have to
dental
really do
insurance
copays or
doesn't
anything for my
necessarily
dental.
expensive
But
compared to
I've
medical
seen
insurance.
But it
the.
also doesn't.
I think I
provide
had to
that
pay
much
like
either.
$150
I mean, it actually
total
provides you,
last
maybe
year
a
since I've had
1,000 to
insurance.
1,500 benefit per year. That's nothing. You can spend
My
more than
health
that in one
insurance
doctor.
provided
Right.
me essentially nothing. I had to pay like close to $8,000 for my stuff.
I also had to pay thousands of dollars for my teeth.
That's true,
just in the
something
last couple of
saucy,
years.
but those are the
I've
people in
since
society that you want to
December,
be the
I-
best
I've
paid.
had
You
a
feel
dental
me? Like
procedure
you
every
want to
year,
have high paid teachers.
to
You
take
want to
care of
have
this.
high paid nurses and
Wow.
doctors and surgeons and so
Nice.
on and so forth.
Yeah,
You
I
want
would do
those
3
people to
separate
be
dentists
comfortable,
try to
you
get
feel
figure
me?
out what I had to get done. Like,
Damn.
because they kept giving me different prices.
I'm sorry to
Yeah,
hear
I
that,
had oral
Mistopheles.
surgery
I
a
was
couple
headed
months
down that.
ago. That shit costs thousands, bro.
Yeah, me too. I just got all 4 of my wisdom teeth taken out in January, and that shit was different.
I just can't imagine. This literally blows my mind listening to people talk. I can't visualize what that would be like.
It's even
Like, you wanna know what
crazier
it's like?
because
There's people who have fucking health insurance companies right now in America who are getting paid, and they make sure that the lobbyists in DC, keep the
Oh,
fucking cash
yeah.
train flowing.
I didn't have
mean-
insurance for like shit. You get off your parents' insurance when you're 26. I'm
26.
32. I just got insurance through my newest job, my freight handler job last year. Like I went like
I
5
haven't gotten
years.
I've been on public healthcare for the last 3 years.
Sheesh. Yeah, I went 5 years with no insurance, no nothing, and I'm honestly surprised I'm still
Jesus.
alive.
Well,
Fucking hell.
Well, so like one thing, like I know we all hate Trump, but like one thing like his administration did do, like to kind of like reform Obamacare in a way, is get rid of that individual mandate.
Hell
you know,
yeah!
to
Happy
where,
Ghana
like,
Independence
if you
Day.
can't afford health insurance, right? You don't get penalized for it anymore.
That
you
was a
know,
good
like-
thing that Trump did.
Yeah, like that was definitely a good thing that Trump did. And like I'm glad that he didn't get rid of all of Obamacare, because some people like really need it. But I'm glad that like a 26-year-old like healthy, like perfectly healthy person that doesn't work a job that provides it isn't forced to like pay an arm and a leg through their government exchange, right? To get healthcare. Now they can just kind of like, all right, well, if I need it, I'll get it, but I feel healthy, and or I can't afford it.
Yeah, that's
and
wild,
I don't have to
that-
worry about trying to figure out a way to afford it.
That's-
Like
That's true. Something
like
saucy.
me personally, I'm actually not for Medicare for all. Like,
Yeah.
really not a
Yeah,
fan of it.
antithesis. That's the
Why?
only
Just why?
thing. Yeah, it's
Um,
yeah.
I think that
I don't
there-
really have an argument for you
like
there.
there are
antithesis.
some benefits to like profit motive in regard to healthcare, right? Like there are some benefits like in like for quality of care, like if you have like a universal healthcare, right? There's no incentive to give you like the highest quality care, right?
And if you really want the highest quality care and you're in the country with universal healthcare, you can just go private if you want to.
You know what's funny,
Everybody
Sock,
else
is
is
someone in my
covered.
chat just brought this exact talking point up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're talking about how.
I have strong disagreements about this, but I'm actually trying to keep myself contained. So that
Well, so here's
I'll
the
do the same.
this is a criticism from the left though, is that if we do Medicare for all, how do we know it's not going to be? Because at the end of the day, it's still the United States government doing it, right? And we know how the United States government feels about marginalized
Hold on.
people in this country.
that's the part that I want to push back against. That's actually just not true. That's the part of it that's not true.
Really? Okay.
First of all, I mean, when it comes to Medicare for all, it is literally just the US government replacing the current standing of the insurance company. So your insurance company doesn't go into a hospital and be like, we're administering care. The insurance company just pays the doctors after they administer the care.
Well, no, so that's not the issue. The issue is like, so as an example, the highest rate of childbirth death in America is Black women. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yeah.
That's not an insurance thing. That's a doctoral thing.
yeah, but I guess actually, you know what? Yeah, this is silly. This is kind of, now that I think
Because
about it.
He's right. The insurance companies don't go in and perform your surgery. It's the fact that the doctors are statistically
Yeah.
less likely to believe African Americans that they're in pain.
They need-
Okay,
they need
yeah,
the pain
okay. So then,
medication.
yeah. All right, cool. All right.
So I'm just going to say though, Sock. So is our fundamental like axiomatic disagreement here is that the freedom of choice that you get from having the highest standard of care available due to the profit motive being in the healthcare system, that you favor the marginal utility of that over the ideal of having everybody covered. Is that, am I
Okay.
getting like, some kind of correct?
It's a quality of
Well,
care thing, which
all right,
is
so
associated
that's-
with
that's,
insurance.
like one disagreement.
Well, yeah, but what he's
another
saying is that the
like,
government would step in and pay for all
with-
of that.
with
so you wouldn't
everyone
necessarily have to be
having,
worried about that.
you know,
But
health insurance and whatever, and the
with a single
hospitals know
institution
that
that's
they're
consistently
gonna
use
get X
political
amount of
football in
dollars,
parliament, it's
you know what I
it's
mean?
bound to get underfunded.
From the
Yeah,
government,
that's
like,
true, broad
guaranteed
discretion.
across the board. Like there's going to end up like there's no
But I feel
necessarily,
like
incentive for them to keep the hospital.
so
like,
yeah,
super,
I feel
super
like if
staffed,
you eliminate
right?
the profit
Keep 'em super
motive,
staffed anyway.
then
Hold on,
Uh,
let him finish. Let him finish.
everybody has
Shut
to
up,
have
fresh-
the same.
fresh faces. All right.
I disagree with- I disagree with Sock, too, but I wanted to get his whole point out.
I'll come over there later. All right.
It's gonna tuck you in.
No, but like you have instances in other countries where you there's like a very extended waiting period in order to get the care that you need. All right. And I think that is definitely a negative side to a universal healthcare, right? Because for instance, like in America, right? Like if you don't have
Low
health
key,
insurance, you can
this
still
could
go to
literally
the
all be
ER
solved by
and-
just
and get-
abolishing capitalism
get
and
seen,
ensuring
right?
that
So like
the
if you
floor
have like
of
say
you
you're
know human
you're
living
homeless,
conditions in
right?
America
And
was set,
you
know,
break
not
your arm
at
or
starvation and
something, right? You can
homelessness,
still go to the
then a lot
ER,
of this wouldn't be a
be
problem.
seen
You know what I mean?
and be treated, and like unfortunately you're not going to be able to pay the bill. You're going to end up with that medical debt, but you're still going to be treated. You know, so it's just like I don't want to subject us to extended lines or like waiting periods for very critical procedures, right? Which tends to follow a universal healthcare model is something I've seen. Now, like one thing that I would actually like to see, which I guess is like kind of along that line, is like I call it like universal preventative care, right? Where like every year you can go to the doctor, you can get a physical, they can do whatever, you know what I mean? Like preventative kind of stuff, you know? And let's say,
We should throw insulin and stuff in that category too.
yeah, yeah, like that's fine. But like, you know what I mean? Like something that's preventive, like you go to your dentist every year for a preventative
The
appointment.
universal checkups paid for by Uncle Sam.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Joe Byron.
I think like that's something like I would be in favor of. but across the board, universal healthcare, where every single procedure is covered. Well, not every single, like obviously breast augmentation and whatever. That's different story.
Yeah.
That's cosmetic shit. Yeah. But like every single procedure is covered. Like then you end up with this large backlog because so many people in America, need so many procedures, right? That aren't able to afford them right now, unfortunately. But then you end up with this backlog. It's kind of
That's very
there
true.
are
Cats,
problems
cats, cats.
to it that I would like
Triple cats. I'm gonna call you triple cats.
to have addressed before we go full bore. Does that make sense?
Okay,
And
my
yes,
response
Frackle,
is
just
to
add
these
more
things,
infrastructure.
my main response really is that, as I said, there are plenty of private insurers that are available in countries that have universal healthcare. And if you have a procedure that you need to have done in immediate fashion, and you cannot, if you will die, or you will be crippled, or if you can't get through that waiting list, there is always the ability to go see somebody privately. For example, I needed to transition. The waiting list for the NHS is 2 years for transition therapy, so I went private. And because the NHS is free, undercutting the costs for the private insurers, I don't even pay very much for my for the drugs that I need to go transition. And the private insurance in the UK is not exactly that expensive because they have to compete with the NHS, which is entirely free.
Does that include
So-
like gender affirming surgeries too, or is that like?
Again, you can get them on the NHS, but there's a long waiting list.
I see.
So all of the gender care is available on the NHS. It's all something you can get on the NHS, right? But you have to get there's like a 2-year waiting list for an initial appointment because again it's low down the priority, right? There's always, because of universal healthcare being what it is, there's always a priority list. There's quality adjusted life years based on what the physical quality adjusted life years that measures different procedures based upon the amount of additional years of quality life you would gain from having that procedure done. And there's a hierarchy of operations, right? I understand that issue, and I get where soccer's coming from. But again, if people want to pay for it, they can just go and pay for it.
Are you ready
All
for
of those
the?
avenues will
You ready
still
for the
be-
crazy lefty take though? If we just abolish capitalism, you abolish money, you won't have to worry about any of this.
I want to step in this really quickly though. I've heard this argument come from Ben Shapiro directly because he's talked about how his wife, is a general practitioner, so on and so forth.
Oh, my wife's a doctor.
This is a Zoom
never
call,
had her wet.
Frackle.
That's not the natural
hold
state
on.
of women.
Just
So-
really quick, my boy Frackle, I don't know if you know Frackle, he wanted to jump in on this if you guys were interested in that. I really like his takes. He's cool.
Yeah, I don't
He's
care.
been in my chat. I fully endorse him by him giving me a follow previously.
All right. Yeah, let me I'll as soon as I finish my little rant here, I'll send him an invite.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, I'll probably hop out
Um,
at 8:30.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, for me, I hate the whole incentive argument. It's like, okay, well, if we like start paying everyone at the Medicaid rate or the Medicare rate, then doctors won't have an incentive to actually want to become doctors. They won't want to go through medical school, so on and so forth. And I'm like,
I disagree with
okay,
that
well,
too.
the biggest, I guess, pushback for all of this is the fact that it exists elsewhere. You know what I mean? Because if people didn't want to go through that, then why are they doing it in Spain? Why are they doing it in Israel? Why are they doing it in Germany? Why are they doing it in France? Why are they doing it in the UK, in South Korea, in Japan? So obviously, there's still people who are willing to be doctors in all those countries where they're being paid less, right? And if their care was so abysmal, as we're also told that it would be, like, oh, the care will be terrible. Well, if it was so abysmal, then why do so many nations continue to do it? If it was so
Cuba
bad,
has the most amount of doctors per capita.
like, why would it continue to be existing in all those nations if it was so bad? I'm not really a big person. I'm kind of flirting with the idea of abolition. Maybe I need to talk to Endless Cemetery a little bit more about these concepts. But
Maybe.
I gotta say, I cannot, for the life of me, stomach why medical insurance needs
For
to exist.
so for me,
It seems like nothing other than a way just to gouge money out of people. And I say that as somebody who actually worked for a medical insurance company just last year, where they told us straight up when we were selling policies to people that, like one of the biggest like rackets in all of medical insurance, the fact that 97% of all claims are actually less than $5,000, which is the reason why most medical insurance companies put your fucking deductible at $5,000 so that you'll never have to fucking use it and they'll never have to pay shit. It's a full-blown racket. So like their whole reason for existing is nothing other than gouge the average consumer. Like it's
That's
absolutely
crazy.
disgusting. It truly is. And so like I just do not think they continue to need to exist. I mean, truthfully speaking, I'm sure the government won't be flawless in their adaptation, but I have to believe there would be an improvement.
Yeah.
And also
And
another
also
point-
one more thing about the whole waiting list concepts. As someone who's been dealing with like neck and back injuries for the last couple of years, I have been routinely in and out of hospitals, routinely in and out of specialists, getting procedures done, getting imaging done, getting every kind of like blood work done. I live in hospitals. There's always wait lists. Even now, even with I have private insurance. I have to wait months to see new doctors. Months.
So-
I have good insurance.
I went
Just
to-
wait-
I went
just
through
wait till you
EMT
have to wait
training.
Years.
Yeah, I went through.
I'm just saying this idea that there's not wait lines currently is a myth.
It's
Oh,
literally
no,
a.
yeah.
It's currently.
It's literally a thing. It's because I went through EMT training and got certified. I was going to be an EMT, but I could not mentally handle that at 19 years old. But yeah, it's called triage. It's just like in war or anything. It's like, okay, who is dead, who's close to dead, and who can walk around, right? And you move accordingly with that. And if you have a certain level of infrastructure that can't really accommodate all the people, then yeah, you gotta make that assessment. But I would just argue that we could or should just build more infrastructure. That's what Frackle was saying, and it's what I agree with.
And also like the idea that like there's going to be this huge rush because Americans are underserved for their healthcare now, that we don't really go because it's too expensive. Like that would just be an initial rush. Like it would take for the people who are currently like underserved to clog the system, and then once that clog was moved, it would move smoother. There would be only like an initial issue, because if you had more access to dealing with issues, you wouldn't have the people who weren't going to get their issues looked at because of fear cost.
Okay,
Facts.
but
I mean, that's true,
you have,
Mistopheles.
You know, like No Justice said, the waiting list in her country for the procedure that she needs, right, is over 2 years, right? That's fucking insane.
That is
Okay.
That is wrong.
All right,
I don't
like-
necessarily
won't
think that's the
deny that.
case. Broad discretion.
I'd like to just preface by saying this is a UK issue, not a universal healthcare issue.
Yeah,
These
they're like-
waitlists do
they're-
not
they're
exist in
turf
the rest of the rest of Europe. It's just because I'm on Turf Island.
Well, from my
Freckle, though.
understanding, it's a
Hello.
Canadian issue as
You
well.
change your name. Go
right?
ahead.
Like I know that
Testing.
in Canada, there's been plenty of people
can hear you,
that are
bud.
waiting for cancer screenings or cancer treatment that come down to the United States because it's less of a waiting list, right?
That's true,
They can
antithesis.
get
To get
their
off the
treatment
street,
quicker and
get
then
healthcare.
hopefully probably survive, right? So like it is semi-common, right? I'm sure some countries do it better than others, but it is semi-common that the waiting list is much greater like with universal healthcare than private. And I understand like we do have waiting lists too with
That's
private,
very true,
right?
Mistopheles.
And I think that's also because our infrastructure isn't as built up as it should be, right?
This is facts.
So like if we do build up the infrastructure, well then even private insurance, there's no waiting list, right? But we would have to build it up massively, right, to be able to handle universal, all right? And like that
It creates jobs.
Well, it creates jobs,
it's
sure.
Not a tomorrow thing either.
No, but like that's what I mean. Like it's not. It wouldn't be an immediate solution, Like this is something that would have to take effect over a long extended period of time.
It sounds
Right.
like you're running into the enemy of the perfect is the good sort of problem, or or enemy of the good is the perfect sort of problem. Like, yeah, there's not going to be an immediate silver bullet.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to do is live in today's reality, and like what is feasible today, right?
The issue,
Like-
so the issue is political will at the end of the day.
Oh,
right?
wow,
Like China
Antithesis,
builds
you were.
hospitals in a week. That's
That's
because they
intense.
have a government who has the political will with which to do so, and that's the issue.
My
that you have
housemate
in
is
the
from
United States.
Hagerstown.
Hold on. Not quite
I'm like the
political
number
will,
one
they have
employer in that
political
spot is
dominance.
the
I
corrections
mean,
facility.
They can
I mean-
order motherfuckers to do work.
But we
Yeah,
can-
just
we
send
can
them to prison.
Authoritarian, But there are some payoffs.
I mean, we could do that. Like if we gave people, like, think about how fast when we put up the med tents and shit for COVID. Like we have the bodies to do
We have plenty of capability. It's about how much money
infrastructure
people
is
wanna
not
allocate
really-
for these
yeah.
things.
right. So it's yeah, it's there. Like we could probably build hospitals in a week if we remove red tape. Actually, there was a bridge that was built near my town, and a couple years ago I was talking to the guy who did it. He was like, listen, the reason that thing is like 3 days or 3 years past its due date is because the red tape. Like you cut the red tape, we would have been done with it like 6 years ago.
I just want to make another response to Sock, just one more about the waiting list thing. Is that sure, Canadians cross the border to be able to go and get American, paid for healthcare. They have that choice. They have the freedom to choose. At the moment in America, there is no freedom to choose. You either pay for it or you die. That's it.
And Americans cross the border to get Canadian medicine at like a tenth of the price.
Whereas again, the same in the UK, where I can either wait 2 years to get essentially what is elective. Most people, some people would see it as cosmetic. Obviously, it's not any psychological association would tell you that it's necessary healthcare, but some people call it cosmetic healthcare. I could have waited 2 years, or I can pay for it. I have that choice, and in the United States, you do not have that freedom.
There's another kind of point that I want to touch on, which is
welcome to the conversation, by the way.
I appreciate you letting me on. And it's really a fundamental one, and it really can't be overstated, which is if you're trying to throttle people seeking healthcare by making healthcare more expensive, less accessible, just because you don't have that infrastructure, what you're basically saying is, well, we just want some people to just keel over and die because we're just unwilling to provide that care. That's at its core, when you distill it down, that is where that position leads. Rather than that, it should be, you assess what is our health demand, what is the actual need, and how do we get there? One of the areas that the United States actually has done this is in flood insurance. We actually shifted that part of housing insurance out of what people just normally pay. And it is actually backed fully by the Treasury and funded through other means than just property taxes, because the demand for it far exceeded what anyone could pay in. So that system we've already socialized. We have precedent for it. It works. It's not perfect, and it could be pushed even further, but that is a precedent here in the US.
Yeah.
It's one of our most functional forms of insurance.
Yeah, but you still have to pay for flood insurance, right?
Some do, and some properties are covered that don't pay for it. Like, it's based on your risk factor.
Oh, yeah,
if you're in
Freckle.
a high risk area, you have to pay it. Otherwise, you don't. Either way, the cost for that you're putting in is nowhere near what's actually paid out when floods happen.
Yeah.
Because they recognize that when there's a flood, we can't actually ask people to cover all of it because the costs of it are just that far beyond. So that's an area where the US government said, okay, this is an unreasonable cost. We need to back this. And
I became aware of that after Old Ellicott City.
We can do the same thing.
This is market inelasticity at the end of the day, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a place
hold
here
on.
in Baltimore County called Old Ellicott City that's flooded like 3 fucking times. Like, I don't even know why people still live or go there, but yeah.
Well, it's just like building a city under seawater in New Orleans.
Basically.
It's just
Basically.
Like, okay.
Look, if we're not
but-
if we're not gonna do green energy, we need to do like Pacific Rim Wall of Life type shit to prep for this. Like
Low
at
key.
the very least.
Low key.
No,
Low
but-
key, high key.
What was I gonna say? God damn it, I got sidetracked.
We were talking about flood insurance, and you still have to pay for it.
As a corollary to medical insurance.
Yeah. No, but this is what I was gonna say. All right, so I guess it's a weird parallel, but it might work, it might not stick. I don't know yet. All right, so if you get shot, right? Let's just say you get shot. You still get taken to the hospital, you still get treated, right? If you break your arm, you can still go to the hospital, you can still get treated without insurance, right? And a lot of times, like hospitals will be able to work with you, right? In regards to medical bills. All right.
Depends. Some of them just decide you're in medical debt for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but also like as long as you pay, like you can work out a deal with them, right? It's not like you have to pay, $500 a month. Like a lot of them
depends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is situational, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get treated, right?
But is that the better
Yeah, they
solution?
might. My
What-
my
what's
medical
better
debt
To have to
debt
be
disappeared
at the
because
level
I
of the hospitals like that.
Well,
Right.
Okay.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
mine
say
is-
mine.
other
I never
Sure.
paid mine. It just disappeared off my credit report because I was in debt for
Yeah,
that
see.
long to the hospital.
Yeah, like like
Same.
honestly,
I have a
if
friend
you
who-
send them like $5 a month, right?
Mhm.
They can't touch your credit report, right? As long as you're sending them money, they can't really bitch.
No, they did. They did.
Yeah.
You have to
the-
pay their minimum payment, and they decide what they think is fair based on their own independent.
That's true.
Right.
Markings, which have no state regulations whatsoever. So this
and
is
can
really,
change at any time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Something
it's
saucy.
not as universal.
That's
as you think.
fucking
I'm
crazy
not
as
sure
hell.
if some states have laws regulating what hospitals.
If
can
they try to
charge
make
other
me
than
pay
state
my
is
spouse's
bananas.
or kids' medical bills or
So-
something, I tell them kiss a tip
Yeah,
my
it's
dick.
basically-
And at the end of the day,
Okay.
It's
at the
a
end
roll
of the
of the
day,
dice.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the functionality of this market is entirely dependent on government, on state intervention, right? The state has to
Mm.
continually intervene to keep this market functioning, which again just feels like a band-aid over what is essentially a non-functioning market because of its level of inelasticity, right?
It
You
I
have
do
to
want to
acknowledge the
hijack the
use value of
conversation
it
really
at the end of the
quickly, though,
day.
everyone. I personally have to shut this down in like 15 minutes because I have to go. But Frackle, I know you just got here, but
All good.
we'll work you back in the future. I do appreciate.
I
you
love
jumping in.
Frackle. He's base as fuck.
These are
Well, I'm
like
gonna have to
the-
shut this
the-
down at like 6:30 my time, which I guess is 8:30 for you East Coast people. So
That's 1:30 a.m. for fucking UK people.
Sheesh.
I'd be
That's
fucking
like it's
sleep.
1 to 30
Thanks for
a.m.
rocking with us. I don't know if you have work in the morning, but hell yeah, thanks for rocking with us.
I do have work in the morning. I start work at 10 and I work from home. My commute
Yo,
is my
okay.
bed
how
to my
do you
desk,
always do
so-
these like American-based panels with this fucking like crazy time difference?
Or better.
Just make do.
Because
You
America's
just have to
better.
make do.
There's
And- and
one,
as I-
there's
and
one
as I said,
last
when I
point I
start-
want to make just
That's
before we get
crazy
too far off
antithesis.
topic and close up. I
Go
just
for
wanted
it.
sorry. All of the money that goes into all of these different pockets of private insurance.
Frackle's
today,
mic is so crispy too. Just listen to his voice.
if you streamline that down into some form of single payer system, it mathematically just by the numbers, can't argue with this, makes it cost a whole lot less, which means you can put a lot of those savings into enhancing your capacity for providing healthcare. Like that's just the numbers. There's no debate over that. Everywhere that you go into a single stream that all of the money is pooled, that you don't have to cover all of these different multiple parallel competing redundant structures, it does cut costs, period. So that is also an area where you can recoup some of the cost and amplify your actual healthcare capacity.
Also, being a monopsony buyer of drugs allows you to drive drug prices down as well because they can't sell to anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, with it being this late, I'm just gonna have to go to bed. I'm quite tired.
I'm gonna hop out too. I'm gonna get dinner. I
No,
gotta-
yeah, it was definitely getting to that time anyway.
I was gonna say I
uh,
would sit and rap with you guys forever if so. Yeah.
I mean, like,
Also,
well, I'm willing
also,
to talk
Sock,
anyone
I'd like to
any other
say I
time.
appreciate you essentially getting stuff into a 5-on-1. That's very admirable. of
Hey,
you.
Hey,
You know what?
he handled it.
Yeah.
Though.
I love
he
it.
handled it.
I
Yeah.
love it. I don't do it that much anymore. And like I feel like since I stopped streaming, I actually grew a set of balls on these panels. And like I'm actually like willing to talk. Because like when I was on like the Hippie Sundays, or I was on Prime's panel a couple times, like I don't know why, but I like froze up, but I don't know, like I don't have that pressure of like people actually like watching me and engaging with me in
Extra
my
all
chat.
5 year Andes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, well, like I was
Don't
the same
diss us
way.
5 viewer Andes.
I was the same way.
I'm
I
like a 3 Andy.
like I didn't have any viewers, but like I don't know why I still felt like that added pressure. But now that I'm not doing it, I'm like, fuck it, whatever. Like
Everyone's here is chill.
I was
too.
gonna say this
Yeah,
environment
yeah.
is way more chill than Hippie
It's-
Dippy.
True.
That's the only reason I will ask to hop on at all is because this actually was a productive conversation, and even with like disagreements, dissenting opinions, those can be handled in a productive manner, and I wish I saw more of that.
Oh, 100%. You
Well,
know,
that's
and I
gonna be
always
my
try to
niche.
engage
That's
them.
not what the people
That's
want
it.
to see. That's blood sport. You know what I'm saying? They want
Yeah,
to see the
I know.
modern gladiatorial games.
I think I can carve out 20% of the market. I think we can have these nuanced conversations on independent thought.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
definitely, and
Absolutely.
if you want me co-hosting, I will do the Bloodsport ones.
Well, like there are some topics that you can get blood sporty about, right? Like you have like the pro Russia people right now. All right, you can get pretty blood sporty towards those people. All right, they kind of deserve it.
There's got to be
You
only
know,
High
3 of
key,
them,
low
though,
key, high
right?
key.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be maybe like 4 tops. Like, how many pro Russia people are there really right now?
You spend
You'd be
enough time on
surprised.
lefty Twitter.
You'd be surprised.
Because you got a few on
This
the
is
left. and a
why I
few on
hang
the
out
right.
on Instagram.
Well,
every
wait, hold on.
day.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
thinking
bunch on the right.
Like,
there
I don't know
is.
how many of them stream. Like, Killamopin doesn't stream. Does the Gray Zone stream? Like those?
I mean,
I
they
don't
were
even know
going
how
hard
many
with it
people-
on CPAC.
Like, I don't even know how many those constitute.
I think if you can't
yeah.
defend your point in a long form conversation, whether that's like doing your own stream or your own podcast or coming on a panel like this, then you should just shut the fuck up.
Low key.
Oh fuck! Yes, I forgot to give you my perspective on your Joe Rogan podcast. I actually did listen to it.
shit. Oh, you did?
I just forgot to fucking respond to your message, like an idiot, like I always do.
I mean, that was a minute ago at this point.
I know,
now,
I know.
but
We don't have to
fucking-
bring it up, but like I
I
don't
would,
know why.
Mustafis, but I think we're
expecting
gonna
huge
end this
backlash from
soon.
my audience, because I was watching a lot of people like on Instagram and how they felt about Joe Rogan, and I knew that I wasn't coming at the conversation the way that they probably wanted me to. So I was feeling
Yeah.
pretty skeptical about publishing that episode. I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to put this shit out.
Well, it's just like you felt skeptical of publishing the last panel I was on when the other I
I
forget the other Trump
I
supporter guy.
legitimately lost subscribers, but you know what?
Sheesh.
I
It
was
is
on
what
that
it
one,
is.
right? That was the one I was on.
I mean, you've been on them all, so.
But the other, like, because the other Trump supporter was like talking some crazy stuff. And I was like,
Oh,
damn
yeah.
it.
Wasn't he advocating to bomb stuff? Was
Oh
that
my
what-
god.
Like, there was 2 panels in a row. That I was on
Bomb
with
Mexico.
people-
We should do Ukraine, but in Mexico.
Wow.
Well, there was
Oh,
there was
no.
one panel I was on with CTV, and it was Swamp Fox or then
Not me.
Woodsman Willie, whatever it was.
Yeah, Woodsman
And
Will.
they were advocating that we should just glass Russia or glass China. And then the following panel, oh no, that was Alex Kirsch's project when I was on with them, and they were advocating for us to, I believe, level Iran. And those were like back to back like panels that I had.
I don't like
Yeah,
Iran.
no, I think the person you're talking about, Sock, his name was Hunter.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm
It
trying
was
to get
about
me-
the election stuff.
He's trying to get me canceled every time he comes on. Man. Every time he comes on, I'm like, do you know that I like basically a complete
Yeah,
leftist
Iran.
audience? Can't.
Yeah. And I get
Wait,
you
you
something
centrist.
saucy, but Iran, the anti-Iran shit is crazy.
I definitely, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to know when to push back on certain things or just like let people talk. I always struggle with that dynamic where I'm just like,
I
I don't
feel
want
it.
people to feel like they can't descend. At the same time, I'm like, when am I supposed to rebut? I don't know.
Well,
Still
how much
figure all
of
that shit
reality
out.
do you want to argue? Is really where you push back.
Right.
I also want people to feel like they have the space to speak. I don't want to be like, oh, like I gotta stop you mid sentence every time that you talk. Like I don't want to be that
Well,
person either.
If you feel like you have to do that, maybe that person shouldn't be on the panel. Like, let's be real.
All right. Well, I mean that's a point. That's a point. But hey, I appreciate everyone coming through tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Let's
Yeah,
do this
and
again.
Likewise, yeah, definitely, 100%.
I'm for it.
I'm gonna be I gotta message those other two, but I'm gonna be putting up like a graphic and like a fucking thumbnail for when this goes up on YouTube. So if y'all could each throw me like a picture of you, like send it to me like Discord or Twitter or whatever, so I can like put it on a graphic or what have you. That'd be great. It could be your logo. It doesn't have to be you. If you have like a logo for your thing, Sock, I think you have a logo. Yeah, just send me some kind of picture that I can use for a graphic.
Just grab
What
my
kind-
Twitter profile.
I'll just
picture
send
if
you the
want.
picture of me in my leather jacket, Big Panther vibes.
Okay.
What kind of picture?
Let's go.
One that's appropriate for YouTube, Sock.
I'll give you a picture.
I was gonna say, if you got the feet on deck, send me the feet.
The feet pics.
All right, everyone. I'm gonna shut this thing down, but I will see y'all in the Discord chat, and we'll fucking
All right,
yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
Hell yeah.
All right, nice
Guys,
talking to
I'll take
everybody.
care of
Nice.
yourselves.
Thanks everyone.
Stay
All
safe.
right, see ya.
Bye.
Oop. So yeah, that was cool. Let me see if I can get my camera working here. Yeah, they were cool. They were really, really cool. I don't know that I'll get my camera to work again here. So I'm probably also going to end soon. Hang on. I think I got it actually. Wait, it's 1 sec. Nope. All right. So yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out, y'all. I appreciate everybody coming through. Thanks for all the new follows and stuff. Shout out to Alucard Hex. Shout out to Hardwood and Sock. Shout out to Broad Discretion. Shout out to Independent Thought for sure. Of course, shout out to Frackle. Thanks for joining us. Shout out to Kevin FM for the raid. I appreciate you. Shout out to Triple Cats for the follow. Shout out to Surfer McGritty. Shout out to J Dunk. And yeah. Shout out to Something Saucy as well. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Shout out to Mistopheles. I appreciate all of you. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's New York time. That's usually when I go live. I go live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and raid Joe Lewis. So, yeah, thanks everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow. Be safe. And yeah, thanks again for